Person's caste should be determined on that person's karma _ not his birth. Not his sex _ no other consideration should interfere. That is nice in theory, Parvati argued Shiva. But how do you ensure it in practice? If a child is born in a Brahmin family, he would get the upbringing and resources which would be different from that of a child born in a Shudra family. So this child would grow up to be a Brahmin even if he was less talented than the Shudra boy. Isn't this unfair to the child born in the Shudra family? Where is the Marayuro in this system? That was the genius of Lord Ram, Shiva smiled. Parvati _ he was of course a brave general, a brilliant administrator and a fair judge. But his greatest legacy is the system he created to ensure that a person's karma is determined only by his abilities, nothing else. That system is what has made Meluha what it is, the greatest nation in history. You can't underestimate the role that Samras has played, Parvati said. Daksha Lord Ram's greatest act was to provide the Samras to everyone. The elixir is what makes Meluhans the smartest people in the universe. The Samras is what has given us the ability to create this remarkable and near-perfect society. Begging your pardon, Your Highness, said Shiva before coming back to Parvati _ but what evil's the system that Lord Ram set up? The system is simple, said Parvati _ as we agreed, the best society is the one where a person's caste is decided purely by his abilities and karma, not by any other factor. Lord Ram created a practical system that ensured this. All children that are born in Meluha are compulsorily adopted by the empire. In order to ensure that this is done methodically, a great hospital city called Maika was built deep in the south, just north of the Narmada River. All pregnant women have to travel there for their delivery. Only pregnant women are allowed into the city. Nobody else. Nobody else. What about her husband, her parents? Asked Shiva. No, there are no exceptions to this rule except for one. This exception was voted in around 300 years ago. Husbands and parents of women of noble families were allowed to enter, answered Parvati, his expression clearly showing that he violently disagreed with this corruption of Lord Ram's system. Then who takes care of the pregnant 7th man in Maika? The hospital staff. They are extremely well trained, continued Parvati. Once the child is born, he or she is kept in Maika for a few weeks while the mother travels back to her own city. Without her child? Asked a clearly surprised Shiva. Yes, replied Parvati, with a slight frown as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. The child is then put into the Meluha Gurukul, a massive school created by the empire close to Maika _ every single child receives the benefit of the same education system. They grow up with all the resources of the empire available to them. Do they maintain records of the parents and their children? Of course they do. But the records are kept in utmost secrecy and are available only with the record keeper of Maika _ that would mean that neither in the Gurukul nor in the rest of the empire would anybody know who the child's birth parents are, reasoned Shiva, as he worked out the implications of what he was hearing. So every child, regardless of whether he is born to a Brahmin or a Shudra, would get exactly the same treatment at the Gurukul. Yes, smiled Parvati. He was clearly proud of the system. As the children enter the age of adolescence, they are all given the Samras _ thus every child has exactly the same opportunity to succeed. At the age of 15, when they have reached adulthood, all the children take a comprehensive examination. The results of this examination decide which Varna or caste the child will be allocated to, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra _ Kanakala cut in. And then the children are given one more year's caste-specific training. They wear their Varna color bands, white for Brahmins, red for Kshatriyas, green for Vaishyas and black for Shudras, and retreat to the respective caste schools to complete their education. So that's why your caste system is called the Vama system, said Shiva. Vama means color, right? Yes, Mayan, smiled Kanakala _ you are very observant. With a withering look at Kanakala, Parvati added sarcastically, yes, That Eva's a very difficult conclusion to draw. Ignoring the barb, Shiva asked, so what happens after that? When the children turn 16, they are allocated to applicant parents from their caste. For example, if some Brahmin parents have applied to adopt a child, one randomly chosen student from Mecca, who has won the Brahmin caste in the examination, is allotted to them. Then the child grows up with these adopted parents as their own child. And society is perfect, marveled Shiva, as the simple brilliance of the system enveloped his mind. Each person is given a position in society based only on his own abilities. The efficiency and fairness of this system is astounding. Over time, my lord, interjected Daksha, we found the percentage of higher castes actually going up in the population. Which means that everybody in the world has the ability to excel. All it takes is for a child to be given a fair chance to succeed. Then the lower castes must have loved Lord Ram for this, asked Shiva. He gave them an actual chance to succeed. Yes, they did love him, answered Parvateshwar, they were his most loyal followers. Jai Shri Ram. But I guess not too many mothers would have been happy with this. I can't imagine a woman willingly giving up her child as SCH3N as he is born with no chance of meeting him ever again but WS for the larger good, said Parvateshwar, scowling at the seemingly stupid question. And in any case, every mother who wants an offspring can apply for one and be allocated a child who suits her position and dreams. Nothing can be worse for a mother than having a child who does not measure up to her expectations. Shiva frowned at explanation, but let the argument pass. I can also imagine that many of the upper castes like the Brahmins would have been unhappy with Lord Ram. After all, they lost their stranglehold on power. Yes, added Daksha. Many upper castes did oppose Lord Ram's reforms. Not just Brahmins, but even Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Lord Ram fought a great battle to defeat them. Those from among the vanquished who survived are the Chandravanshis we see today. So your differences go that far back? Yes, said Daksha. The Chandravanshis are corrupt and disgusting people. No morals. No ethics. They are the source of all our problems. Some of us believe that Lord Ram was too kind. He should have completely destroyed them. But he forgave them and let them live. In fact, we have to face the mortification of seeing the Chandravanshis rule over Lord Ram's birthplace Ayodhya. Before Shiva could react to this information, the bell of the new Prahar was rung. Everyone said a quick prayer to welcome the subsequent time chapter. Shiva immediately looked towards the window. A look of expectancy appeared on his face. Daksha smiled as he observed Shiva's expression. We could break for lunch now, my lord, but if you have another engagement you would like to attend, we could continue. Tomorrow_Parvateshwar glared at Daksha disapprovingly. He knew exactly what the emperor was trying to do. That would be nice, your highness, smiled Shiva. Is my face such a giveaway? Yes, it is, my lord. But that is a gift you have. Nothing is prized more than honesty in Meluha. Why don't you leave for your engagement and we could convene here again tomorrow morning? Thanking Daksha profusely, Shiva left the room with Nandi in tow. Shiva approached the hedge with excitement and trepidation. Scarce had he heard the beat of the dhol emanating from the direction of the garden, he dispatched Nandi to the guest house for lunch. He wanted to be alone. He let out a deep sigh of ecstasy as he crept up behind the hedge to find Sati practicing under the eye of the Guruji and Kritika_ISOGCH3D. To see you again, Shiva said the Gurvi as he stood up with a formal namast. The pleasure is all mine, Guruji, said Shiva, as he earned down to touch the Gurita's feet as a sign of respect. Sati stood silently at a distance with her gaze on the Kritika, said enthusiastically, I just couldn't get your dance out of my mind. Shiva blushed at the compliment. Oh, it wasn't all that good. Now you're fishing for compliments, teased Kritika_. I was wondering if we could start off where we left the last time, said Shiva, turning towards Sati. I don't think I have to be your teacher or anything like that, I just wanted to see you dance. Sati felt her strange discomfort returning once again. What was it about Shiva that made her feel that she breaking the law when she spoke to him? She was allowed to talk to men as long as she kept a respectable distance. Why should she feel guilty? I will try my best, said Sati formally. It would be enriching to hear your views on how I can improve myself. I really do respect you for your dancing skills. Respect? Why respect? Why not love? Shiva smiled politely. He knew instinctively that saying anything at this point of time would spoil the moment. Sati took a deep breath, girded her angvastram around her waist and committed herself to the Nataraj pose. Shiva smiled as he felt Mother Earth project her Shakti, her energy, into Sati. Energized by the earth she stood upon, Sati began her dance. And she had really improved. The emotions seemed to course through her. She had always been technically good, but the passion elevated her dance to the next level. Shiva felt a dreamy sense of unreality overcome him again. Sati maintained a magnetic hold over him as she moved her lithe body with the dance steps. For some moments, Shiva imagined that he was the man that Sati was longing for in her dance. When she finally came to a stop, the audience spontaneously applauded. That was the best I have ever seen you dance, said the gun_Yix with pride. Thank you Guruji, said Sati as she bowed. Then she looked expectantly at Shiva. It was fantastic, exclaimed Shiva. Absolutely fabulous. Didn't I tell you that you had it in? I thought that I didn't get it exactly right at the moment of attack, said Sati critically. You're being too hard on yourself, consoled Shiva. That was just a slight error. It happened only because you missed out on holding one angle at your elbow. That made your next move a little odd. Rising swiftly to his feet, Shiva continued, see, I'll show you. He walked quickly towards Sati and touched her elbow to move it to the correct angle. Sati immediately recoiled in horror as there was a gasp from the Gurvi as well as Kritika. Shiva instantly realized that something terrible had happened. I am sorry, said Shiva, with a look of sincere regret. I was just trying to show you where your elbow should be. Sati continued to stare at Shiva, stunned into immobility. The gun_2 was the first to recover his wits and realized that Shiva must undergo the purification ceremony. Go to your pandit, Shiva. Tell him you need a Shuddhikaran. Go before the day is over. What? What is a Shuddhikaran? Why would I need it? Please go for a Shuddhikaran, Shiva, said Sati, as tears broke through her proud eyes. See, I would never be able to forgive myself if something were to happen to you. Nothing will happen to me. Look, I am really sorry if I have broken some rule by touching you. I will not do it again. Please not make a big deal of this. It is a big deal, shouted Sati. The violence of Sati's reaction threw Shiva off balance. Why the hell is simple thing being blown complete out of proportion? Kritika came up close to Sati while being careful not to touch her, and whispered, we should go back home, my lady. No. No. Please stay, pleaded Shiva. I won't touch you_I promise. With a look of hopeless despair, Sati turned to leave, followed by Kritika and Guruji at the edge of the hedge. She turned around and beseeched Shiva once again, please go for your Shuddhikaran before nightfall. Please. At the look of uncomprehending mutiny on Shiva's face, the Gurite advised, listen to her, Shiva. She speaks for your own good. What BLCH3DY nonsense, yelled Shiva as his disturbed thoughts finally broke through his desperate efforts at silent acceptance. He was lying in his bedroom at the royal guest house. He had not undergone the Shuddhikaran_. He had not even bothered to find out what the ceremony was_. Why would I need to be _ed for touching Sati? I want to spend all my remaininjas touching her in either possible way. One gobji to keep on undergoing a Shuddhikaran every do. Ridiculous. Just then a troubling thought entered Shiva's mind. Is it because of me? Am I not allowed to touch her because I am caste unmarked? A infoi barbarian. No. That can't be true, whispered Shiva to himself. Sati doesn't think like that. She is a good woman. But what fits true? Jibe if she knows that I am the Neelkanth. Chapter 7 Lord Ram's unfinished task. You seem to be a little distracted this monk, my lord. Are you all right? Asked a concerned Daksha. Said Shiva as he looked up. I'm sorry, your highness. I was a little distracted. Daksha looked at Kanakala with a concerned expression. He had seen a similar look of despair on Sati's face at dinner the previous night, but she had refused to say anything. Do you want to meet later? Asked Daksha. Of course not, Per Highness. It's all right, my apologies. Please continue, said Shiva. Well, continued a concerned Daksha, we were talking about the changes that Lord Ram brought about in society. Yes, said Shiva, shaking his head slightly to get the disturbing image of Sati's last plea out of his mind. The Maker system MDRK'd fantastically well. Our society boomed. Ours was always one of the wealthiest lands on earth. But in the last 1,200 years we have shot dramatically ahead of everyone else. Meluha has become the richest and most powerful country in the world by far. Our citizens lead ideal lives. There is no game. People do what they are suited for and not what an unfair social order would compel them to do. We don't force or fight unprovoked wars with any other country. In fact, ours has become a perfect society. Yes, your highness, agreed Shiva, slowly getting into the conversation. I don't believe that perfection can ever be achieved. It is more of a journey than a destination. But your society is certainly a near-perfect society. Why do you think we are not perfect? Argued Parvateshwar aggressively. Do you think it is perfect, Parvateshwar? Asked Shiva politely. Is everything in Meluha exactly the way Lord Ram would have mandated? Parvateshwar fell silent. He knew the obvious, even if he didn't like the answer. The Lord is right, Parvateshwar, said Daksha. There are always things to improve. Having said that, your highness, spoke Shiva, your society is wonderful. Things do seem very well ordered. What doesn't make sense to me then, is why you and Per people are so concerned about the future. What is the problem? Why is a Neelkanth required? I don't see anything that is so obviously wrong that disaster would be just a breath away. This is not like my homeland where there are so many problems that you wouldn't know where to begin. My lord, a Neelkanth is needed because we are faced with challenges that we cannot confront. We keep to ourselves and let other countries lead their lives. We trade with other societies but we never interfere with them. We don't allow uninvited foreigners into Meluha beyond the frontier towns. So we think only fair that other societies leave us alone to lead our lives the way we want to. And presumably they don't, your highness. No, they don't. Why? One simple word, my lord, replied Daksha. Jealousy. They hate our superior ways. Our efficient family system is an eyesore to them. The fact that we take care of everyone in our country makes them unhappy because they can't take care of themselves. They lead sorry lives. And rather than improving themselves, they want to pull us down to their level. I can understand. My drill used to face a lot of jealousy in Mount Kailash since we had control over the shore of the Mansarovar lake and hence the best land in the region. But sometimes I wonder if we could have avoided bloodshed if we had shared our good fortune more willingly. But we do share our good fortune with those who wish to, my lord. And yet, jealousy blinds our enemies. The Chandravanshis realized that it was the Sumras that guaranteed our superiority. Funnily enough, even they have the knowledge of the Sumras but they have not learned to mass produce it like we do and hence haven't reaped all its benefits. Sorry to interrupt, your highness, but where is the Sumras produced? It is produced at a secret location called Mount Manda. The Sumras powder is manufactured there and then distributed throughout the Meluhan Empire. At select temples, specially trained Brahmins prepare the solution with water and other ingredients and then administer it to the population. All right, said Shiva. The Chandravanshis could not come as Pedwafu one as us since they did not have enough Sumras eaten up with jealousy. They devised a devious plan to destroy the Sumras and hence us. One of the key ingredients in the Sumras is the waters of the Saraswati. Water from any other source does not work. Really? Why? We don't know, my lord. The scientists can't explain it. But only the waters of the Sarasvati will do. That is why the Chandravanshis tried to kill the Saraswati to harm us. Kill the river? Asked Shiva incredulously. Yes, my lord, said Daksha, as his childlike eyes flared with indignation at the Chandravanshi perfidy. The is formed by the confluence of two mighty rivers up north, the Sutlej and the Yamuna. In an earlier era the course of the Sutlej and the Yamuna was considered neutral territory, from which both the Chandravanshis as well as the Surivanshis drew water for the Sumras. But how did they try to kill the Sarasvati, your highness? They diverted the course of the Yamuna so that instead of flowing south, it started flowing east to meet the Ilmain river. Ganga. You can do that? Asked Shiva in amazement. Change the course of a river? Yes, of course you can, answered Parvati. We were livid, interjected Daksha, but we still gave them an opportunity to make amends for their duplicity. And what can you expect from the Chandravanshis, my lord? Said Daksha in disgust. They denied any knowledge of this. They claimed that the river made such a dramatic change its course all by itself, due to some minor earthquake. And even worse, they claimed that since the river had changed course of its own accord, we Meluhans would simply have to accept what was essentially God's will. We of course refused to do that, said Parvati. Under the leadership of King Brahmanarak, His Highness Father, we attacked Swadweep. The land of the Chandravanshis, asked Shiva. Yes, Shiva, said Parvati. And it was a resounding victory. The Chandravanshi army was routed. King Brahmanayak magnanimously let them keep their lands and even the system of governance. We didn't even demand any reparations or a yearly tribute. The only term of the surrender treaty was the return of the Yamuna. We restored the Yamuna to her original course, which eventually met with the Saraswati. Did you fight in that war, Parvati? Yes, said Parvati, his chest swollen with pride. I was a mere soldier then, but I did fight in that war. Turning to Daksha, Shiva asked, then what is the problem now, your highness? Your enemy was comprehensively defeated. Then why is the Saraswati still dying? We believe that the Chandravanshis are up to something once again. We don't understand it as yet. After their defeat, the area between our two countries was converted into a no-man's land and the jungle has reclaimed it. This includes the early course of the Yamuna as well. We have stuck to our part of the agreement and have never disturbed that region. It appears that they haven't honored their end of the bargain. Are you sure about that, your highness? Has the area iron checked? Has this been discussed with the Chandravanshis 3 representative in your empire? Are you trying to say that we are lying? Countered Parvati. True Surivanshis don't pat Viteshwar, scolded Daksha angrily. The Lord was not implying any such thing. Listen to me, Parvati, said Shiva politely. If I have learned one thing from the pointless battles of my land, it is that Ivars should be the last resort. If there is an alternative available, what is the harm in saving some young soldier's life? Surely, a mother would bless us for it. Let's not fight. Wonderful, what a great savior we have. Parvati muttered under his breath. You have something to say, Pat Viteshwar, barked Kanakala. I have told you afore. You will not insult the Neelkanth in my presence. I don't take orders from you, growled Parvati. Enough, ordered Daksha. Turning to Shiva, he continued, see, I am sorry, my lord. You are right. We shouldn't just declare war without being sure. That is why I have avoided a war until now. But just look at the facts. The flow of the Saraswati has been gradually waning for the last half-century. And the last few years have been horrible, said Kanakala as she controlled her tears at the thought of the slow death of the river most Meluhans regarded as a mother. The Sarasvati doesn't even reach the sea now and ends in an inland delta just south of Rajasthan. And the Sumras cannot be made without water from the Saraswati, continued Daksha. The Chandravanshis are aware of this, and that is why they are trying to kill her. What does the Swadweep representative have to say about it? Has he been questioned? We have no diplomatic relations with Swadweep, my lord, said Daksha. Really? I thought having representatives of other countries was one of your innovative systems. It gives you an opportunity to understand them and maybe avoid jumping into a war. I had heard of a diplomatic mission from Mesopotamia coming in Avo days ago. Then why not have this with Swadweep as well? You don't know them, they are untrustworthy people. No follower of the Surivanshi way of life will sully his soul by even speaking to a Chandravanshi. Shiva frowned but didn't say anything. You don't know the levels they have sunk to, my lord. Over the last few years they have even started using the cursed Nagas in their terrorist attacks on us, said Kanakala, with a disgusted terrorist attacks. Yes, my lord, said Daksha. Their defeat kept them quiet for many decades. And because of our overwhelming victory in the previous, they now believe that they cannot overpower us in an open confrontation. So they have resorted to a form of assault that only repulsive people like them can be capable of. Terrorist attacks. I don't understand, what exactly do they do? They send small bands of assassins who launch surprise attacks on non-military but public places. Their idea is to attack non-combatants, the Brahmins, Vaishyas or Shudras. They try to devastate places like temples, public baths, areas that might not have soldiers who can fight back, but whose destruction will wreck the empire's morale and spread terror. That's disgusting. Even the Pakratis in my land, a bunch of complete barbarians, would not do that, said Shiva. Yes, said Patviteshwar. These Chandravanshis don't fight like men. They fight like cowards. Then why don't you attack their country? Finish this once and for all. We would like to, my I'd, said Daksha. But I am not sure we can defeat them. Shiva observed Parvateshwar seething silently at the insult to his army, before turning towards Daksha. Why, your highness? You have a well-trained and efficient force. I am sure your army can defeat them. 2 reasons, my lord. Firstly, we are outnumbered. We were outnumbered even 100 years back. But not by a very significant margin. Today, we estimate that they have a population of more than 80 million as compared to our 8 million. They can put up a much larger army against ours. Their sheer numbers will cancel out our technological superiority, but why should per population be less? You have people who live beyond the age of 200 years. Your population should be higher. Sociological causes, my lord, said Daksha. Our country is rich. Children are a matter of choice, and not a duty. Parents adopt children from the maker system in small numbers, maybe 1 or 2, so that they can devote more attention to their upbringing. Fewer mothers are giving birth at maker as well. In Swadweep, the children of the poor are often treated as mere bonded labor meant only to supplement the family income. Resultantly, the whole country, though deprived, has a large population. And the second reason for avoiding war. The second reason is something that is under our control. We fight in accordance with rules of war, with norms and ethics. The Chandravanshis do no such thing. And I fear this is a weakness in us, that our ruthless enemies can exploit rules of war, asked Shiva. Yes. For example, we will not attack an unarmed man. A better armed person like a cavalryman will not attack a lesser armed person like a spear-wielding foot soldier. A swordsman will never attack a person below his waist because that is unethical. The Chandravanshis don't care for such niceties. They will attack whoever and however they find expedient to ensure victory. Begging your pardon, Your Highness, said Parvateshwar_, but that difference is what makes us who we are. Like Lord Ram had said, a person's character is not tested in good times. It is only in bad times that a person shows how steadfast he is to his dharma. But Parvateshwar sighed Daksha. /.we are not under attack by people who are as ethical and decent as we are. Our way of life is under assault. If we don't fight back in any which way we can, we will lose. My apologies once again, Her Highness, said Parvateshwar_. I have never said that we should not fight back. I am eager to attack. I have been asking repeatedly for permission to declare war on the Chandravanshis_, but if we fight without our rules, our codes, our ethics, then our way of life is as good as destroyed. And the Chandravanshis would have won without even fighting us. The conversation came to a halt with the ringing of the Prahar town bell, as everyone said a quick prayer. Shiva tummed towards the window, wondering if Sati would be dancing today. Daksha tummed to Shiva expectantly. Do you need to leave, my lord? No, Your Highness, said Shiva, hiding the pain and confusion he felt inside. I don't believe I am expected anywhere at this point in time. Daksha's smile disappeared along with his hopes, on hearing this. Shiva continued, if it is all right with you, Your Highness, may we continue our conversation? Perhaps we can delay our lunch a little. Of course we may, smiled Daksha, pulling himself together. I have got the story so far, Your Highness. Whereas I can understand your reasons for not wanting to attack right now, I can also see that you clearly have a plan, in which my blue throat has some strange role to play. Yes, we do have a plan, my lord. I feel that as an emperor, my Divamgin unthinkingly to the righteous anger of some of our people will not solve our problem. I believe that the people of Swadweep themselves are not evil. It is their Chandravanshal rulers and their way of life that has made them evil. The only way forward for us is to save the Swadweepans themselves. Save the Swadweepans? Asked Shiva, genuinely surprised. Yes, my lord. Save them from the evil philosophy that infects their soul. Save them from their treacherous rulers. Save them from their meaningless existence. And we can do this by giving them the benefits of the superior Surivanshi way of life. Once they become like us, there will be no reason to fight. We will live like brothers. This is the unfinished task of my father, King Brahmanayak. In fact, it is the unfinished task of Lord Ram. That is a big task to take on, Your Highness, said Shiva. It is sweeping in its kindness and reason. But it is a very big task. You will need soldiers to defeat their army and missionaries to bring them to your side. It is not going to be easy. I agree. There are many in my empire who have concerns about even attacking Swadweep, and I am putting forth a much bigger challenge to them, of reforming Swadweep. That is why I did not want to launch this without the Nilkanth, my lord. Shiva remembered his uncle's words, spoken many years ago, in what was almost another life. Your destiny lies beyond the mountains. Whether you fulfill it or run or once again, is up to you. As Daksha resumed speaking, Shiva refocused his attention on him. The problems that we are facing were prophesied, my lord, continued Daksha. Lord Ram had himself said that any philosophy, no matter how perfect, works only for a finite period. That is the law of nature and cannot be avoided. But what the legends also tell us is that when the problems become insurmountable for ordinary men, the Nilkanth will appear. And that he will destroy the evil Chandravanshis and restore the forces of good. My lord, you are the Nilkanth_. You can save us. You can complete the unfinished task of Lord Ram. You must lead us and help us defeat the Chandravanshis_. You must rally the Swadweepans to the side of good. Otherwise I fear that this beautiful country that we have, the near-perfect society of Meluha, will be destroyed by endless wars. Will you help us, my lord? Will you lead us? Shiva was confused. But I don't understand, Your Highness. What exactly would I do? I don't know, my lord. We only know our goal and that you will be our leader. The path we take is up to you. They want me to destroy the entire U4V of life of 8 million people all by myself. Are they mad? Shiva spoke carefully. I empathize with your people and their hardships, your highness. But to be quite honest, I don't really understand how one man can make a difference. If that man is you, my I'd said Daksha, his moist eyes opened wide in devotion and faith, I can change the entire universe. I am not so sure about that, your highness, said Shiva with a weak smile. What difference will I make? I am no miracle worker. I cannot snap my fingers and cause bolts of lightning to descend upon the Chandravanshis. It is your presence itself that will make the difference, my lord. I invite you to travel through the empire. See the effect your blue throat has on the people. Once my people believe that they can do it, they will be able to do it. You are the Neelkanth, my lord, added Kanakala. The people have faith in the bearer of the blue throat, they will have faith in you. Will you help us, my lord? Will you awoe once again? But how do you know that my blue throat makes me the genuine Neelkanth? Asked Shiva. For all you know, there may be many Meluhans with a blue throat waiting to be discovered. No, my Ind, said Daksha. It cannot be a Meluhan. The legend says that the Neelkanth will be a foreigner. He cannot be from the Sapt Sindhu and that his throat will turn blue when he drinks the Samras. Shiva did not answer. He looked stunned as truth suddenly dawned upon him. Srinagar. The first night Samras. That's how my body got repaired. That's why I'm feeling stronger than ever. Daksha and Kanakala looked at Shiva breathlessly, waiting for his decision. Praying for his right decision. But why on me? All the Gunners were given the Samras. Was my uncle right? Do I really have a prophesied destiny? Parvateshwar stared at Shiva with narrowed eyes. I don't deserve a prophetic destiny. But Mole, this is my chore to redeem myself. Be out first. Shiva asked with controlled politeness, Your Highness, before I answer, may I ask you a question? Of course, my lord. Do you agree that honesty is required to make any friendship work? Even if it means deeply offending your friend with the truth? Yes, of course, replied Daksha, wondering where Shiva was going with this. Complete honesty is not lust, the bedrock of an individual relationship, but of any stable society, interjected Parvateshwar. I couldn't agree more, said Shiva. And yet, Meluha wasn't honest with me. Nobody said anything, Shiva continued in a courteous, but firm tone. When my tribe was invited to Meluha, we were under the impression that you needed immigrants to build a workforce. And I was happy to escape my benighted land. But now I realize that you were systematically searching for the Neelkanth. Coming to Nandi, Shiva said, we weren't told that a medicine called the Samras would be administered to us as soon as we entered. We weren't told that the medicine would have such effects. Nandi looked down with guilty eyes. His lord had the right to be angry with him. Coming to Daksha, Shiva continued, Your Highness, you know that the Samras was probably administered to me on my first night in Kashmir, without my knowledge. I am truly sorry for that act of perfidy, my lord, replied Daksha with folded hands and downcast eyes. Is something that I will always be ashamed of. But the stakes were too high for us. And the Samras has considerable positive effects on one's body. It causes no I know. I am not exactly upset about having to live a long and healthy life, said Shiva wryly. Do you know that my tribe was also probably given the Samras that night? And they fell seriously ill. Perhaps because of the Samras. They were under no risk, my lord, said Kanakala apologetically. Some people are predisposed towards certain diseases. When the Samras enters the body, it triggers the immediate occurrence of these diseases, which when cured, never recur. Hence, the body remains healthy till death. Your tribe is actually much healthier now. No doubt they are, said Shiva. That is not the point. Both my tribe and I are the better for it. Yet I hardly expected such deceit in the land of Lord Ram. You should have told us the complete truth at Mount Kailash. Then you should have let us make an informed choice rather than you making it for us. We probably would still have come to Meluha anyway, but then it would have been our choice. Please forgive us the deception, Mayan, said Daksha, with guilty regret. It is not our way to do something like this. We pride ourselves on our honesty. But we had no choice. We are truly sorry, my lord. Your people are well taken care of. They are healthier than ever. They will live long, productive lives. Parvateshwar finally broke his silence, speaking about what had always been in his heart ever since the search had begun many decades ago. Shiva, we are truly sorry about what has been done. You have every right to be angry. Lymg is not our. I think what was done is appalling, and Lord Ram would never have condoned this. Deception is the instrument of the weak, and even extenuating circumstances can provide no excuse. I am deeply sorry. Shiva raised his eyebrow a bit. Parvateshwar is the one apologizing instead of making excuses. He is a true follower of the great king. Shiva smiled. Daksha let out an audible sigh of relief. Shiva turned towards Daksha. Let us put this in the past, Your Highness. Like I said, there are some things about your nation that could be improved. No doubt about that. But it is amongst the best societies that I have seen. And it is worth fighting for. But I have a few conditions. Of course, my lord, said Daksha, eager to please. At this point of time, I am not saying that I can perform the tasks that you expect of me, nor am I saying that I cannot do it. All I am saying is that I will try my best. But to begin with, I want to spend some more time understanding your society before I can be sure of how I can help. I am assuming that from now on nothing will be hidden from me, nor will I be misled. Of course, my lord. Secondly, you still need immigrants to expand your population. But you should not mislead them. I think that you should tell them the entire truth about Meluha and let them make an informed decision on whether they want to come here. Or you don't invite them at all. Is that fair? Of course it is, my lord, said Daksha. Nodding briefly towards Kanakala, he committed, we will implement that immediately. Furthermore, it is clear to me that I am not going back to Kashmir. Can my tribe, the Gunners, be brought to Devagilai? I would like them to be with me. Of course, my lord, said Daksha with a quick look at Kanakala. Instructions will be sent today itself to bring them to Devagilai. Also, I would like to visit the location where you manufacture the samras. I would like to understand this drink of the gods. Something tells me that it is important to do so. Of course you may, my lord, said Daksha, his face finally breaking into a net, coos smile. Kanakala will take you there tomorrow itself. I too will be there along with my family for a scheduled puja at the temple of Lord Brahma. Perhaps we could meet. That would be nice, said Shiva smiling. Then taking a deep breath he added, and lastly, I guess that you would like to announce the arrival of the Neelkanth to your people. Daksha and Kanakala nodded hesitantly. I would like to request that you don't do that for now. Daksha and Kanakala's face fell immediately. Nandi's eyes were glued to the floor. He hard stopped listening to the conversation. The enormity of his prevarication was tearing him apart. Your Highness, I have a terrible feeling that when people know I am the Neelkanth, every action and word of mine will be over-interpreted and over-analyzed, explained Shiva. I am afraid that I don't know enough about your society or my task to be able to handle that at this point of time. I understand, Mind, said Daksha, willing a half-smile back on his face. You have my word. Only my immediate staff, my family and the people you yourself allow will know of the Neelkantha's arrival. Nobody else. Thank you, Your Highness. But I will say it again. I am a simple tribal man who just happened to acquire a blue throat because of some exotic medicine. Honestly, I still don't know what one man like me can do in the face of the odds that you face. And I'll say it again, my lord, said Daksha, with a childlike smile. If that man is you, he changed the entire universe. Chapter 8. Drink of the Gods. Shiva strode towards the royal guest house with a leaden-footed Nandi close behind, head bowed in self-recrimination. I wish to dine alone, said Shiva over his shoulder. All Nandi could muster was, I am so sorry, my lord. Shiva turned around to gaze at Nandi. You are right, my lord. We were so lost in our own troubles and the search for the Nilkanth that we didn't realize the unfairness of our actions on immigrants. I misled you, I lied to you. Shiva didn't say anything. He continued to stare intensely into Nandi's eyes. I am so sorry, my lord. I have failed you. I will accept whatever punishment you give me. Shiva's lips broke into a very faint smile. He patted Nandi lightly on his shoulders, signaling he had forgiven him. But his eyes delivered a clear message. Never lie to me again, my friend. Nandi nodded and whispered, never, I am so sorry forget it, Nandi said Shiva, his smile a little broader now. It's in the past, they turned and continued walking. Suddenly Shiva shook his head and chuckled slightly. Strange people. What is it, my lord? Asked Nandi. Nothing really. I was just wondering at some of the interesting things about Per society. Interesting, my lord? Asked Nandi, feeling a little more confident now that Shiva was speaking to him again. Well, some people in your country think that the mere existence of my blue throat can help you achieve impossible tasks. Some people actually think that my name has suddenly become so holy that they can't even speak it. Nandi smiled slightly. On the other hand, continued Shiva, some people clearly think that I am not required. In fact, they even think that my touching them is so polluting that I need to get a Shuddhikaran done. Shuddhikam? Why would you need that, my lord? Asked Nandi, a little concerned. Shiva weighed his words carefully. Well, I touched someone. And I was told that I would need to undergo a Shuddhikam 3. What? Did you touch, my lord? Was it a Vaikama person? Asked a troubled Nandi. Only the touch of a Vaikama person would mean that you do 1D need to get a Shuddhikaran. Shilpa's face abruptly changed color. A veil lifted from his eyes. He suddenly understood the significance of the events of the previous day. Her hasty withdrawal at being touched. The shocked reactions from the Guruji and Kritika. Go back to the guest house, Nandi. I will see you there, said Shiva, as he turned towards the guest house garden. My lord, what happened? Asked Nandi, trying to keep pace with Shiva. Did you get the Shuddhikaran done or not? Go to the guest house, Nandi said Shiva, walking rapidly away. I will see you there. Ksata 4. At Shiva waited for the larger part of an hour. But it was in vain, for Sati did not make an appearance. He sat on the bench by himself, cursing the moment when that terrible thought had entered his mind. How could I have you, though that Safi would find my touch polluting? I am such a bloody idiot. He replayed the moments of that fateful encounter in his mind and analyzed every facet of I would never be able to focus if something went to happen to you. What did she mean by that? Does she have feeling for me? Or is she just an honorable woman who can bear to be the cause of some woe and ease misfortune? And why should she think of herself as inferior? This entire concept of the karma is so damned ridiculous. Realizing that she wasn't going to come, Shiva got up. He kicked the bench hard, getting a painful reminder that his once numb toe had got its sensation back. Cursing out loud, he started walking back to the guest house. As he passed the stage, he noticed that there was something lying on the dance floor. He bent down and picked it up. It was her Irad bracelet. He had seen it on her right hand. The string did not seem broken. Had she purpose dropped it? He smelt it. It had the fragrance of the holy lake on a sun-kissed evening. He brought it delicately to his lips and kissed it gently. Smiling, he dropped the bracelet into the pouch tied around his waist. He would come back from Mount Manda and meet her. He had to meet her. He would pursue her to the end of the world if required. He would fight the entire human race to have her. His army in this life was incomplete without her. His heart knew it, his soul knew it. "How much farther, Madam Prime Minister?" asked Nandi, behaving like an excited child. "A visit to the mythical Mount Mundal, the hub where the drink of the gods Eva's manufactured. Eva's a rare honor for any Meluhan _ most Surivanshis considered Mount Manda the soul of the empire. As long as it was safe, so was the Sumras _ It's only been an hour since we left Devajayari, Captain said Kanakala, smiling. Sadar's journey to Mount Mandan. Actually the blinds on the carriage windows prevent me from judging the angle of the sun and hence the passage of time. That's the reason why I was asking. The Prahar lamp is right behind you, Captain. The blinds have been drawn for your own protection _ Shilpa smiled at Kanakala _ He could understand that the blinds were not for the protection, but for the safety of Mount Manda _ to keep its location secret. Very few people knew of its exact location. An elite team of soldiers called the Arishtani protected the road to Mount Manda and the travelers on it. Apart from the scientists of Mount Mundal, the Arishtani soldiers or any other person authorized by the emperor, nobody else was allowed to go to the mountain or to even know its location. If the Chandravanshi terrorists attacked Mount Mundal, all would be lost for Meluha _ Who would we be meeting there, Kanakala? Asked Shiva. My lord, we would be meeting Brahaspati _ He is the chief scientist of the empire. He leads the team of scientists who manufacture the Sumras for the entire country. Of course, they also conduct research in many other fields. A bird courier has already been sent to him informing him of your arrival. We will be meeting him tomorrow morning. Shiva nodded slightly, smiled at Kanakala, and said, "Thank you." As Nandi looked at the Prahar lamp again, Shiva went back to his Enoch _ It was an interesting manuscript about the terrible war that was fought many thousands of years ago, between the Devas, the gods, and the Asuras, the demons. An eternal struggle between opposites, good and evil. The Devas, with the help of Lord Rudra, the Mahan, the god gods, had destroyed the Asuras and established righteousness in the world again. "I hope you slept well, my lord," said Kanakala as she welcomed Shiva and Nandi into the chamber outside Brahaspati's office. It was the beginning of the last hour of the first Prahar _ days again early at Mount Mandan. "Yes, I did," said Shiva. "Though I could hear a strange rhythmic sound all through the night." Kanakala smiled but did not offer any explanation. She bowed her head and opened the door to let Shiva into Brahaspati's office. Shiva walked in followed by Kanakala and Nandi. There were various strange instruments spread throughout Brahaspati's large office, neatly organized on tables of different heights. Palm leaf notes were placed alongside each of the instruments where some experiments had clearly been conducted. The room was in muted blue. A large picture window in the corner afforded a breathtaking view of the dense forest at the foot of the mountain. Many simple, low seats had been arranged together in a square in the center of the room. It was a frugal room, in line with a culture that celebrated simplicity over ostentation. At every turn Brahaspati was standing in the middle of the room, his hands folded in a namaste. Of medium height, much shorter than Shiva, his wheat-colored skin, deep-set eyes and well-manicured beard gave Brahaspati a distinguished appearance. Serene of expression and shaven of head, his shoti bespoke of Brahmanical learning. His body was slightly overweight _ His broad shoulders and barrel chest would have been markedly pronounced if they had been exercised a bit, but Brahaspati's body was a vehicle for his intellect and not the temple that it is to a warrior or kshatriya. He wore a typical white cotton dhoti and an angvastram draped loosely over his shoulders. He wore a jainau bed from his left shoulder down to the right side of his hips. "How are you, Kanakala?" asked Brahaspati _ It has been a long time. "Yes it has, Brahaspati III," said Kanakala, greeting Brahaspati with a namaste and a low bow. Shiva noticed that the second amulet on Brahaspati's arm showed him as a swan. A very select chosen tribe among Brahmins _ this is Lord Shiva, said Kanakala, pointing towards Shiva. Just Shiva will do, thank you, smiled Shiva, with a polite namaste towards Brahaspati _ all right, them just Shiva it is. And, who might you be, asked Brahaspati, turning towards Nandi _ this is Captain Nandi, answered Kanakala _ Lord Shiva's aide. A pleasure to meet you, Captain, said Brahaspati, before turning back to Shiva. I don't mean to sound rude, Shiva. But would it be possible for me to see your throat? Shiva nodded. As he took off his cravat, Brahaspati came forward to examine the throat. His smile disappeared as he saw Shiva's throat radiating a bright blue hue. Brahaspati was speechless for a few moments. Slowly gathering he turned towards Kanakala _ this is not a fraud. The color comes from the inside. How is this possible? This means that yes, said Kanakala softly, with a happiness that seemed to emanate from deep inside. It means the Nilkanth has come. Our savior has come. Well, I don't know about that, said an embarrassed Shiva, retying the cravat around his throat. But I will certainly try my best to help your wonderful country. It is for this reason that I have come to you. Something tells me that it is important for me to know how the Somas works. Brahaspati still seemed to be in a daze. He continued to watch Shiva, but his attention seemed elsewhere. It appeared as if he was working out the implications of the true Nilkantha's arrival. Brahaspati _ said Kanakala, as she tried to call the chief scientist back into the here and now. Can you tell me how the Samras works, Brahaspati, asked Shiva. Agam, of course, said Brahaspati, as his eyes refocused on the people in front of him. Noticing Nandi, he asked, is it all right to speak in front of the captain? Nandi has been my friend through my Sajum in Meluha, said Shiva. It is all right if he stays here. Nandi felt touched that his lord still trusted him so openly. He swore once again, on pain of death, to never lie to his lord. Whatever you say, Shiva, said Brahaspati, smiling warmly. Shilpa noticed that Brahaspati was not submissive or excessively deferential on discovering that he was the Nilkanth _ just like Parvateshwar. Brahaspati called Shiva by his name and not my lord. However, Shiva felt that while Parvateshwar's attitude was driven by a distrustful surliness, Brahaspati's was driven perhaps by an assured affability. Thank you, smiled Shiva. So, how dtrs the Samras work? The royal procession moved slowly on the road to Mount Manda _ a pilot guard of 160 cavalrymen rode in front of the 5 royal carriages in columns of 4 abreast. A rear guard of another 160 rode behind the royal carriages, in a similar formation. A side guard of 40 each marched along the left and right flanks. Each carriage also had 10 soldiers and 5 servant maids seated on the side supports. The soldiers were the legendary Arishtanemi, the most feared militia in all of India. The 5 carriages were made of solid wood, with no windows or apertures, except for upward pointed slits at the top for ventilation. There was a grille in front, behind the rider, that allowed in light and air. This could be shut instantly in case of an attack. All the carriages were of exactly the same dimension and appearance, making it impossible to know which carriage carried the royal family. If a person had Daiwadrishti, divine vision, to look beyond what human eyes could see, he would observe that the first, third and fourth carriages were empty. The second carried the royal family, Daksha, his wife Virini and his daughter Sati. The last carriage carried Parvateshwar and some of his key brigadiers. Father, I still don't understand why you insist on taking me along to Puas _ I am not even allowed to attend the main ceremony, said Sati. I have said this to you many times, smiled Daksha, as he patted Sati's hand fondly. No puja of mine is complete unless I have seen your face. I don't care about the damned law. Father, whispered Sati with an embarrassed smile and a slight, reproachful shake of her head. She knew it was wrong of her father to insult the law. Sati's mother, Virini, looked at Daksha with an awkward smile. Then taking a quick look at Sati, she returned to her book. At a short distance from the royal procession, hidden by the dense forest, a small band of 50 soldiers moved along silently. The soldiers wore light leather armor on their torso and had their dhotis tied in military style to ensure ease of movement. Each of them carried 2 swords, a long knife and a hard shield made of metal and leather which was tied loosely around the back. Their shoes had grooves that could hold 3 small knives. 2 men walked at the head of the band. One of them, a handsome Pung man with a battle scar embellishing his face, wore a dark brown turban which signified that he the captain. His leather armor had been tied a little loose and a gold chain and pendant had slipped out carelessly. The pendant had a beautiful, white representation of a horizontal crescent moon, the Chandra/Ranshi symbol. Next to him walked a giant of a man covered in a long roll from head to toe. Stitched onto the robe beavers pulled up over his head while his face was covered with a black mask. Very little of him was visible except for his strong fleshy hands and his expressionless, almond-shaped eyes. A leather bracelet was tied to his right wrist with the serpent arm symbol embroidered onto it. Without coming to the captain, the hooded figure said, "Vishwadyumna, your mark is visible. Put it in and tighten your armor." An embarrassed Vishwadyumna immediately pushed the chain inside and pulled the avo strings on the side of his shoulder to tighten the breastplate. "My lord, begging your pardon," said, "but we could move ahead and confirm that this is the route to Mount Manda. Once we know that, we'll be sure that our informant was correct. I am sure that we can come back to kidnap her later. We are dangerously outnumbered in any case. We can't do anything right now." The hooded figure replied calmly, "Vishwadyumna, have I ordered an attack? Where does the question of us being outnumbered come in? And we are moving in the direction of Mount Manda. A few hours delay will not bring the heavens down. For now, we follow." Vishwadyumna swallowed hard. There was nothing he hated more than opposing his lord's views. After all, it was his lord who had found the rare Surivanshi sympathetic to their cause. This breakthrough would make it possible for them to rip out and destroy the very heart of Meluha. He spoke softly, "But my lord, you know the queen doesn't like delays. There is unrest brewing amongst the men fueled by a feeling that perhaps the focus is being 10th Street." The hooded figure tummed sharply. His body seemed to convey anger but his voice was composed. "I am not losing focus. If you want to leave, please go. You will get your money. I will do this alone if I have to." Shocked to see the rare display of emotion in his leader, Vishwadyumna retracted immediately. "No, my lord. That is not what I was trying to imply. I am sorry. I will stay with you till you release me." "You are right. A few hours will make no difference, keeping in mind that we have waited for centuries." The platoon continued tracking the royal caravan silently. "At a conceptual level, how the Samras works is ridiculously simple," said Brahaspati. The almost impossible task was to convert the concept into reality. That was the genius of Lord Brahma. "Jai Shri Brahma. Jai Shri Brahma," repeated Shiva, Kanakala and Nandi. Before understanding how the medicine slows down the aging process dramatically, have to understand what keeps us alive, said Brahaspati. There is a fundamental thing that none of us can live without. Shiva stared at Brahaspati, waiting for him to expound. "And that fundamental thing is energy," explained Brahaspati. When we walk, talk, think, in fact when we do anything that can be called being alive, we use energy. "We have a similar concept amongst our people," said Shiva. "Except, we call it Shakti," asked a surprised Brahaspati. Interesting. That word has not been used to describe energy for many centuries. It was a term employed by the Pandyas, the ancestors of all the people of India. Do you know where your tribe has come from? Their lineage? I am not really sure, but there is an old woman in my tribe who claims to know everything about our history. Perhaps we should ask her when she comes to Devagiri. "Perhaps we should," smiled Brahaspati. In any case, getting back to the subject, We know that nothing can be done by our body without energy. Now where does this energy come from? From the food that we eat, suggested Nandi, timidly. He was finally developing the confidence to speak in front of such important people. Absolutely right. The food that we eat stores energy, which we can then expend. That's also why we feel weak when we don't eat. However, you don't get energy merely by eating. Something inside the body has to draw the energy so that we can put it to good use. Absolutely agreed Shiva. The conversion of food into energy is performed by the air we breathe, continued Brahaspati. The air has various gases in it. One of these gases is called oxygen, which reacts with our food and releases energy. If we don't get oxygen, our body would be starved of energy and we would die. But this is the process that keeps us alive, said Shiva. What does the medicine have to do with it? The medicine has to on that which causes us to grow old, become weak and die. Brahaspati smiled. What I've told you does have something to do with how we age. Because as it appears, nature has a sense of humor. The thing that keeps us alive is also what causes us to age and eventually die. When oxygen reacts with our food in order to release energy, it also releases free radicals called oxidants. These oxidants are toxic. When you leave any fruit out and it becomes rancid, this is because it has been oxidized or the oxidants have reacted with it to make it rot. A similar oxidizing process causes metals to corrode. It happens especially with the new metal we have discovered, iron. The same thing happens to our body when we breathe in oxygen. The oxygen helps convert the food we eat into energy but it also causes the release of oxidants into our body which start reacting inside us. We rust from the inside and hence age and eventually die. By the holy god Agni, exclaimed Nandi. The thing that gives us life is also what slowly kills us. Yes, said Brahaspati. Think about it, the body tries to store everything that you need from the outside world in order to survive. It stores enough food to survive for a few days. Without it, it stocks up on water so that a few days of thirst will not kill you. It seems logical, right? If your body needs something, it keeps some of it as backup for possible shortages. Absolutely agreed Shiva. On the other hand, the body does not store enough oxygen, the most crucial component of staying alive, to last for more than just a few minutes. It doesn't make any sense at all. The only explanation is that the body realizes that despite being an elixir, oxygen is also a poison. Hence it is dangerous to store. So, what did Lord Brahma do? Asked Shiva. After a lot of research, Lord Brahma invented the samras, which when consumed, reacts with the oxidants, absorbs them and then expels them from the body as sweat or urine. Because of the samras, there are no oxidants left in the body. Is that why the perspiration released from the body is poisonous the first time a drinks the samras? Yes. Your sweat is particularly dangerous the first time you drink the samras. Having said that, remember, sweat and urine released from the body even after a person has drunk the somas for years remains toxic. So you have to eject it from the body and make sure that it does not affect anyone else. So, that's why the Meluhans are so obsessed with hygiene. Yes. That's why all Meluhans are taught about two things from a young age, water and hygiene. Water is the cleanest absorber of the effluents that the samras generates and excretes as toxins. Meluhans are taught to drink gallons of water. And everything that can be washed, should be washed. The Meluhans bathe at least twice a day. All ablutions are done in specific rooms and underground drains then safely carry the waste out of the city. Strict hygiene standards, smiled Shiva, as he remembered his first day in Kashmir and Ayutvati's strong words. How is the samras manufactured? Manufacturing the samras is not without its fair share of difficulties. It requires various ingredients that are not easily available. For example, the Sanjeevani tree. The empire has granted plantations to produce these trees. The manufacturing procedure also generates a lot of heat, so we have to use a lot of water during the processing to keep the mixture stable. Also, the crushed branches of the Sanleven tree have to be tuned with the waters of the Sarasvati river before processing begins. Water from other sources doesn't work. Is that the strange noise I keep hearing, the churnus? That's exactly what it is. We have giant tuning machines in a massive cave at the base of this mountain. The Sarasvati waters are led in here through a complex system of canals. The water is collected in an enormous pool in the cave which we affectionately call Sagar Sagar. An ocean. Is that what you call a pool of water? Asked a surprised Shiva, for he had heard legends about the massive, never-ending expanse of water called Sagar. It is a bit of a hyperbole, admitted Brahaspati with a smile. But if you did see the size of the pool, you would realize that we are not that off the mark. Well, I would certainly like to see the entire facility. It was too late by the time we got in last night, so I haven't seen much of the mountain as yet. I will take you around after lunch, said Brahaspati. Shiva grinned in reply. He was about to say something, but checked himself in time, looking at both Kanakala and Nandi. Brahaspati noticed the hesitation. He felt Shiva might want to ask him something, but not in front of Nandi and Kanakala. Brahaspati tummed to them and said, I think Shiva wants to ask me something. May I request you to outside? It was a measure of the respect that Brahaspati commanded, that Kanakala immediately rose to leave the room after a formal namaste, followed by Nandi. Brahaspati tummed to Shiva with a smile. Why don't you ask the question you really came to ask? Chapter 9, Love and its Consequences. I didn't want to question you in front of them. Their faith is overwhelming, explained Shiva with a wry grin. He was beginning to like Brahaspati. He enjoyed being around a man who treated him like an equal. Brahaspati nodded. I understand, my friend. What do you want to ask? Why me? Asked Shiva. Why did the Somas have this strange effect on me? I might have a blue throat, but I don't know how I am going to become the savior of the Surivanshis. The emperor tells me that I am supposed to be the one who will complete Lord Ram's unfinished work and destroy the Chandravanshis. He told you that? Asked Brahaspati, his eyes wide with surprise. The emperor can be a little tiresome at times. But suffice it to say that what he told you is not completely correct. The legend doesn't exactly say that the Nilkanth will save the Surivanshis. The legend says two things. First, that the Nilkanth will not be from the Sapt Sindhu. And second, the Nilkanth will ire the destroyer of evil. The Meluhans believe that this implies that the Nilkanth will destroy the Chandravanshis, since they are obviously evil. But destroying the Chandravanshis doesn't mean that the Surivanshis will be saved. There are many other problems, besides the Chandravanshis, that we need to solve. What kind of problems? Like the Nagas. Brahaspati seemed to hesitate for a moment. He replied carefully. There are many problems. We are working hard to solve them. But coming back to your question, why did the Soms have this effect on you? Yes, why did it? Did my throat turn blue? Leave alone stopping the degeneration of my body, the Samras actually repaired a dislocated shoulder and a frost-bitten toe. It repaired an injury, asked an incredulous Brahaspati. That's impossible. It is just supposed to prevent diseases and aging, not repair maladies. Well, it did in my case. Brahaspati thought for a bit. We will have to do experiments to come up with a definitive answer. For now though, I can think of only one explanation. I have been told that you come from the highlands beyond the Himalayas, right? Shiva nodded. The air gets thinner as you go higher up the mountains, continued Brahaspati. There is less oxygen in thinner air. That means your body was used to surviving with less oxygen and resultantly was less harmed by the oxidants. Therefore the antioxidants in the Samras may have had a stronger effect on you. That could be one of the reasons, agreed Shiva. But if that was the case, then the necks of all my tribesmen should also have turned cold and blue. Why just me? A good point, conceded Brahaspati _ but tell me one thing, did your trill also experience an improvement in the pre-existing conditions? Actually, yes they did. So maybe the diluted ale you all lived in did have some role to play. But since your entire tribe did not develop blue throats, it is obvious that the thinner air theory may offer a partial explanation. We can always do some more research. I am sure there is a scientific explanation for the blue throat. Shiva's piercing look revealed that he had read the intent behind Brahaspati's last statement. You don't believe in the legend of the Neelkanth, do you? Brahaspati smiled at Shiva awkwardly. He was beginning to like Shiva and did not want to say anything to insult him. But he wasn't going to lie either. I believe in science. It provides a solution and a rationale for everything. And if there is anything that appears like a miracle, the only explanation is that a scientific reason for it has not been discovered as yet. Then why do the people of Meluha not come to science for solving their problems? I am not sure, said Brahaspati thoughtfully. Perhaps it is because science is a capable but cold-hearted master. Unlike a Neelkanth, it will not solve your problems for you. It will only provide you with the tools that you may need to fight your own battles. Most people find it easier to wait for the arrival of the Messiah rather than act to solve their own problems. So what do you think is the role that the Neelkanth has to play in Meluha? Brahaspati looked at Shiva sympathetically. I would like to think that true Surivanshis should fight their own demons rather than put pressure on someone else and expect him to solve their problems. A true Surivanshis' duty is to push himself to the limit of his abilities and strength. The coming of the Neelkanth should only redouble a Surivanshis' efforts, since it is obvious that the time for the destruction of evil is near. Shiva nodded. Are you concerned that it may be too much of a strain for you to take up a responsibility that you don't really want, because of the pressure of faith? Asked Brahaspati _ No, that is not my concern, replied Shiva. This is a country and I certainly want to do all I can to help. But what if your people depend on me to protect them and I can't? Right now, I can't say that I can do all that is expected of me. So how can I give my word? Brahaspati smiled. According to his rule book, any man who took his own word so seriously was deserving of respect. You appear to be a good man, Shiva. You will probably face a lot of pressure in the coming days. Be careful, my friend. Because of the blue throat and the blind faith it generates, your decisions will have ramifications for the entire land. Remember, whether a man is a legend or not is decided by history, not fortune tellers. Shiva smiled, glad to have finally found a man who understood his predicament. And more importantly, was willing to at least offer some advice. It was late in the evening. Having spent a thoroughly enjoyable afternoon on a detailed tour of Mount Mandakshith Brahaspati, Shiva lay on his bed, reading a book. A spent chilam lay on the side table. A few aspects of the story he was reading, the righteous war against the Asuras, troubled him. The Asuras were demons and were expected to behave like demons who had a pathological hatred for the Devas. They routinely attacked Deva cities, trying to force them to accept the Asura way of life. This was not a surprise to Shiva. What he hadn't expected though were the unusually unethical means the Devas sometimes adopted in the pursuit of victory. Lord Rudra, though personally a great man, seemed to ignore the indiscretions of the Devas in the interest of the larger good. Shiva heard a commotion outside the guest house. He looked out of his first-floor balcony and noticed that the royal caravan had just arrived. The Arishtani soldiers quickly lined up for the traditional salute. Some people appeared to be disembarking from the far side of the second carriage. Even though they appeared to be the royal family, Shiva noted the absence of servitude and pageantry on the part of the Arishtani. Shiva suspected that this could be due to the usual Meluhan obsession with perceived equality. However, Shiva's equality theory was challenged when he looked at the fifth carriage from which Patviteshwar alighted. Here, the Arishtani seemed to be in a tizzy. The senior captain rushed in front of Parkateshwar and executed a Meluhan military salute, a quick click of the heels, the body rigid in attention and the right hand, balled into a fist, brought rapidly and violently to his left chest. The salute was followed by a deep bow of respect to the commander of the army. The soldiers at the back repeated their captain's greeting. Parkateshwar formally saluted in return, accompanied with a slight bow of his head. He started towards his soldiers, inspecting them, while the captain politely fell 2 steps behind. Shiva had a feeling that the admiration reserved for Parkateshwar was not because of the post he held, it was for the man himself. For all his surliness, Parkateshwar had the reputation of a brave warrior, a soldier's general, respected as a man who was true to his word. Shiva could see the strength of that repute in the eyes of each Arishtani who bent low on receiving the attention of his general. A little while later, Shiva heard a soft knock on his door. He did not need to guess who waited on the other side. Sighing softly, he opened the door. Daksha's fixed smile disappeared and he started a little as the unfamiliar odor of marijuana assaulted his senses. Kanakala, standing to the emperor's right, appeared equally perplexed. "What is that stench?" Daksha asked Prahaspati, who stood to the left. "Perhaps you should change the Lord's room. How can you subject him to this discomfort?" "I have a feeling that Shiva is comfortable with this aroma, Your Highness," said Prahaspati. "It is a smell that travels with me, Your Highness," said Shiva. "I like it." Daksha was baffled. His face did emptying to hide his revulsion. But he quickly recovered his composure. "After all, the Lord was happy with the malodor." "I am sorry to disturb you, my lord," said Daksha, his smile back in place. "I last thought I would inform you that my family and I have reached the guest house." "It's very kind of you to inform me, Your Highness," said Shiva with a formal namaste. "My family and I were hoping for the honor of having breakfast with you tomorrow morning, my lord." "The honor would be mine, Your Highness." "Excellent. Excellent," beamed Daksha as he moved on to the question that dominated his mind. "What do you think of the somas, my lord? Isn't it really the drink of the gods?" "Yes, Your Highness. It does appear to be a miraculous drink. It is the basis of our civilization," continued Daksha. "Once you have taken a tour of our land, you will see the goodness of our way of life. I am sure you will find it in your heart to do something to save it." "Your Highness, I already think highly of your country. It truly is great and treats its citizens well. I wouldn't doubt that it is a way of life that is worth protecting. However, what I am not sure about is what I can do. Yours is such an advanced civilization and I am just a simple tribal man." "Faith is a very potent weapon, my lord," said Daksha, his hands joined in supplication. "All that is needed is for you to have as much faith in yourself as we have in you. I am sure that if you spend a few more days in our country and see the effect that your presence has on our people, you will realize what you can do." Shiva gave up arguing against Daksha's childlike belief. Prahaspati winked at Shiva before coming to his rescue. "Your Highness, Shiva looks tired to me. It has been a long day. Maybe he should retire and we could meet tomorrow." Daksha smiled. "Perhaps you are right, Prahaspati. My apologies for troubling you, my lord. We will see you at breakfast. Have a good night." "Good night," wished Shiva in return. Sati waited quietly at the table as Daksha glanced nervously at the prahar lamp. To the left were Kanakala, Prahaspati and Parkateshwar. To his right was an empty chair. "For the Nilkanth," thought Sati. Next to the empty chair sat Sati and to her right was her mother, Virini. Daksha had agonized deeply over the seating to get it exactly right. Sati looked over the arrangements. A formal table and chairs for breakfast rather than the preferred low table and floor cushions that Meluhans normally sat upon to eat the beloved banana leaf had been replaced by gold plates. The taste-enhancing kulbards, or mud cups, had been replaced by refined silver glasses. She thought that her father was really pulling out all stops for this breakfast meeting. She had seen him pin his hopes on too many so-called Neelkanths earlier. Miracle men who had turned out to be frauds. She hoped that her father would not have to face disillusionment once again. The crier announced Shiva and Nandi. As Daksha rose with a reverential namaste to receive the Lord, rolled his eyes at the servile behavior of his emperor. At the same instant, Sati bent down to pick up a glass that she had accidentally knocked over. "My lord," said Daksha, pointing to the people standing around the table. "Kanakala, Brahaspati and Parvateshwar, you already know. At the far right is my wife, Queen Virmi. Shiva smiled politely as he resumed Virini's namaste with a formal namaste and a low bow. "And next to her," said Daksha with a broad smile as Sati came up holding the glass she had retrieved, "is my daughter, Princess Sati." The breath went out of Shiva as he looked at his life staring back at him. His heart beat a frantic rhythm. He could swear that he had got a whiff of his favorite frag, Ansem the world, the aroma of the holy lake at sunset. As before, he was mesmerized. There was an uncomfortable silence in the room. Except for the noise made by the unfortunate glass which fell from Sati's hand again. The clang of the rolling glass distracted Sati slightly from her fixed gaze. With superhuman effort, she managed to control the look of shock on her face. She was breathing heavily, as if she had just danced a duet with Shiva. What she did not know was that her soul was doing exactly that. Daksha gazed at the dumbstruck couple with glee. He had the look of a director who had just seen his play being perfectly executed. Nandi, standing right behind Shiva, could see Sati's expression. Suddenly everything became clear to him. The dance practices, the Vaikama touch, the Shuddhikaran and his lord's anguish. While some part of him was afraid, another reconciled to it quickly. If his lord wanted this, he would support it in every way possible. Brahaspati stared blankly at the couple, deep in thought about the implications of this unexpected situation. Parvateshwar looked at the goings-on with barely concealed repugnance. What was happening was wrong, immoral, and worst of all, illegal. "My lord," said Daksha, pointing towards the empty seat at his right. "Please take per seat and we shall begin." Shiva did not react. He had not heard Daksha's words. He was in a world where the only sound was the harmonious melody of Sati's heavy breathing. A tune he could blissfully dance to for his next 7 lives. "My lord," repeated Daksha, a little louder. A distracted Shiva finally looked at Daksha, as if from another world. "Please take per seat, my lord," said Daksha. "Yes, of course, your highness," said Shiva, averting his eyes in embarrassment. As Shiva sat down, the food was brought in. It was a simple delicacy that the Meluhans loved for breakfast. Rice and some cereals were fermented and ground into a thick batter. Small portions of this batter were then wrapped in banana leaves and steamed into cylindrical roundels. It was served while still draped in the banana leaf, along with some spicy lentils for taste. The dish Eva's called an idli. "You're the Neelkanth," a still shocked Sati whispered softly to Shiva, as she had willed some calmness into her breathing. "Apparently so," replied Shiva with a playful grin. "Impressed?" Sati answered that question with a raised disdainful brow. "The mask was back, why would I be impressed?" "What? My lord," said Daksha. "Yes, your highness," said Shiva, turning towards Daksha. "I was thinking," said Daksha. "Our puja should be over by this evening. However, I have to stay here for 2 more days for some reviews with Brahaspati. There is no point in Virim and Sati getting thoroughly bored out here in the meantime." "Thank you, your highness," said Brahaspati with a sly grin. "Your vote of confidence in the interest that the royal family has in Mount Manda is most reassuring." The entire table burst out laughing. So did Daksha, exhibiting a sporting spirit. "You know what I mean, Brahaspati," said Daksha, shaking his head. Turning back to Shiva, he continued, "From what I am led to believe, my lord, you were planning to leave for Devagiri tomorrow morning. I think it may be a GCH 3D idea for Virini and Sati to accompany you." The rest of us can catch up with you 2 days later. Sati looked up in alarm. She wasn't sure why, but something told her that she shouldn't agree to this plan. Another part of her said that she had no reason to be scared. In all the 85 years that she had spent as a Vaikama, she had never broken the law. She had the self-control to know what was right, and what Shiva though had no such compunctions. With very obvious delight, he said, "I think that is a very good idea, Your Highness. Nandi and I could travel Xith both Her Highnesses back to Devajayari_is settled," then said a visibly content Daksha. Coming to Parvateshwar, he said, "Parvateshwar, please ensure that the Arishthanemi escort are broken up into 2 groups for the return journey." "My lord, I don't think that is wise," said Parvateshwar. "A large part of the Arishthanemi are still in Devagli prepared for the material transfer. Also, the standing contingent in Mount Manda cannot be reduced under any circumstances. We may not have enough soldiers for Avokarabak/Rans_ perhaps, we could all travel together day after tomorrow." "I am sure there won't be a problem," said Daksha. "And don't you always say that each Arishthanemi is equal to 50 enemy soldiers?" "It's settled. The Lord Neelkanth, Virini and Sati will leave tomorrow morning. Please make all the arrangements." Parvateshwar went unhappily back to his thoughts as Shiva and Sati started whispering to each other. "Agam, you did go for a Shuddhikaran, didn't you?" asked Sati seriously. "Yes," said Shiva. He wasn't lying. He had gone for a purification ceremony on his last night at Devajayari_. He didn't believe he needed it, however, he knew that Sati would ask him the next time they met and he didn't want to lie to her. "Though I think the idea of doing a Shuddhikaran is completely absurd," whispered Shiva. "In fact, the entire concept of the Vaikama is ridiculous. I think it is one of the few things in Meluha that is not fair and should be changed." Sati up suddenly at Shiva, her face devoid of any expression. Shiva stared hard into her eyes, trying to gauge some of the thoughts running through her mind. But he hit a blank. It was the beginning of the second prahar the next day when Shiva, Virini, Sati and Nandi departed for Devajayari along with 100 Arishthanemi_ Daksha. Parvateshwar and Kanakala stood outside the guest house to see them off. Brahaspati had been detained by some scheduled experiments. The entourage had to sit in the same carnage as there were guidelines that a minimum of 4 kamages had to be kept aside for any caravan that carried the emperor. Since the royal procession had come in 5 carnages, that left only 1 carriage for this caravan. Parvateshwar was deeply unhappy about the unorthodox way in which members of the royal family were travelling without any dummy carriages, but his objections had been overruled by Daksha. Sitting on one of the comfortable sofas inside the carriage, Sati noticed that Shiva was wearing his cravat again. "Why do you cover your throat all the time?" "I am uncomfortable with all the attention that comes along with anyone seeing the blue throat," replied Shiva, "but you will have to get used to it. The blue throat is not going to disappear." "True," answered Shiva with a smile. "But till I get used to it, the cravat is my shield." As the caravan left, Parvateshwar and Kanakala came up to Daksha. "Why do you have so much faith in that man, my lord?" asked Parvateshwar of Daksha. "He has done nothing to deserve respect. How can he lead us to victory when he has not even been trained for it? The entire concept of the Neelkanth goes against our rules. In Meluha, a person is supposed to be given a task only if he is found capable of it and is trained by the system." "We are in a state of Ivar," Parvateshwar replied Daksha. "An undeclared one, but a state of war all the same. We face a terrorist attack every other week. These cowardly Chandravanshis don't even attack from the front so that we can fight them. And our army is too small to attack their territory openly. Our rules are not working. We need a miracle. And the first rule of serendipity is that miracles come when we forget rational laws and have faith. I have faith in the Neelkanth_ and so do my people, but Shiva has no faith in himself. How can you force him to be our savior when he himself doesn't want to be one? Sati will change that mind. You are going to use your own daughter as bait, asked a horrified Patviteshwar _ and do you really want a savior who decides to help us just because of his lust? It is not lust. Parvateshwar and Kanakala kept quiet, shocked by Daksha's reaction. What kind of a father do you think I am? Asked Daksha. You think I will use my daughter so? She just may find comfort and happiness with the Lord. She has suffered enough already. I want her to be happy. And if in doing so, I help my country as well, what is the harm? Parvateshwar was about to say something but thought the better of it. We need to destroy the Chandravanshi ideology, continued Daksha. And the only way we can do that is if we can give the benefits of our lifestyle to the people of Swadweep _ the common Swadweepans will be grateful for this, but their Chandravanshi rulers will try everything within their power to stop us. They may be able to resist us, but try as they might, they cannot stop the people led by the Neelkanth _ and if Sati is with the Neelkanth, there is no way he would refuse to lead us against the Chandravanshis _ but your highness, do you really think the Lord would come to our side just because he is in love with your daughter? Asked Kanakala. You have missed the point. The Lord does not need to be convinced to be on our side, said Daksha. He already is. We are a great civilization. Maybe not perfect, but great all the same. One has to be blind to not see that. The Neelkanth needs his motivation and the belief in himself to lead us. That belief in himself will emerge when he gets closer to Sati. And how is that going to happen, Per Highness? Asked Parvateshwar, frowning slightly. Do you know what is the most powerful force in a man's life? Asked Daksha. Kanakala and Patviteshwar looked at Daksha nonplussed. It is his intense desire to impress the person he loves the most, expounded Daksha. Look at me. I have always loved my father. My desire to impress him is what is driving me even today. Even after his death, I still want to make him proud of me. It is driving me to my destiny as the K _ who will re-establish the pure Surivanshi way of life across India, and when the Neelkanth develops a deep desire to make Sati proud of him, he will rise to fulfill his destiny. Parvateshwar frowned, not quite agreeing with the logic, but keep him quiet all the same. But what if Sati seeks something different? Asked Kanakala _ like a husband who spends all his time with her. I know my daughter, replied Daksha confidently. I know what it takes to impress her. That's an interesting point of view, my lord, smiled Kanakala _ just out of curiosity, what do you think is the most powerful force in a woman's life? Daksha laughed out loud. Why do you ask? Don't you know? Well, the most powerful force in my life is the desire to get out of the house before my mother-in-law wakes up. Both Daksha and Kanakala guffawed loudly. Parvateshwar didn't seem to find it. See, I am sorry, but that is no way to speak about your mother-in-law. Oh, relax, Parvateshwar, said Kanakala _ you take everything too seriously. I think, said Daksha smiling, the most powerful force in a woman's life is the need to be appreciated, loved and cherished for what she is. Kanakala smiled and nodded. Her emperor truly understood human emotions. Chapter 10. The hooded figure returns. As the caravan emerged from the carefully chiseled passage leading out of the depths of Mount Mundal, Virini requested that the carnage be stopped for a minute. Virini, Sati, Shiva and Nandi went down on their knees and offered a short prayer to the mountain for its continued benefaction. Watching over them on high alert was the Arishtani Babravia, a strapping man of 60 years with an intimidating moustache and beard. After a short while, Babravra came up to Virini and said with barely concealed impatience, Your Highness, perhaps time to get back into the carriage. Virini at the captain and got up with a quick nod. Sati, Shiva and Nandi followed. Ksata 49 Isha, said Vishwadyamna, putting down the scope and tumming towards his ind _ the platoon was at a safe distance, concealed from the caravan. The dense and impenetrable foliage was an effective shield. Yes, said the hooded figure and let his eyes linger on Shiva's muscular body. Even without using the scope, he was in no doubt that this Eva's the same man who had fought him at the Brahma temple some weeks ago. Who is that man? I don't know. Keep your eye on him. He was the one who foiled the last attack. Vishwadhyamna wanted to say that the previous attempt failed because it was unplanned. The presence of the caste unmarked man had little role to play. Vishwadhyamna could not understand the recent irrational decisions of his lord. It was unlike him. Perhaps it was the closeness of the ultimate objective that was clouding his judgment. Vishwadhyamna was, however, wise enough to keep his thoughts to himself. Perhaps we could track them for around an hour before we attack, my lord. It will lie a safe distance from the Arishtani backup. We can get this over and done with quickly and report back to the Queen that the informer was correct. No, we'll wait for a few hours more till they are at least a half day's distance away from Mount Mandan. Their new Kamages have systems that can send an emergency signal immediately. We need to ensure that our task is over before their backup arrives. Yes, my lord, said Vishwadhyamna, happy to see that his lord's famed tactical brilliance had not diminished. And, remember, I want it done quickly, added the hooded figure. The more time we take, the more people get hurt. Yes, my lord. Ksata 49. It was the beginning of the third prahar when the caravan stopped at the halfway clearing for lunch. The forest had been cut back to a distance that made a surprise attack impossible. The Queen's maids quickly unpacked the food and began heating it in the center of the clearing. The royal party and Shiva were sitting closer to the head of the caravan, in the same direction as Devajayari_Babravia stood on the higher ground in the rear, keeping an eagle eye on the surroundings. Apart from the royal party, half the Arishtani soldiers had also sat down to eat while the others kept watch. Shiva was about to take a second helping of rice when he heard the crack of a twig down the road. Stopping midway, he listened intently for another sound. There was none. His instincts told him this was a predator, who, on realizing that he had made a mistake, was now keeping still. Shiva looked over at Sati to see if she had heard the sound. She too was staring intently down the road. There was a soft crunch as the foot on the broken twig eased its pressure slightly. It would have been missed by most, except for a focused listener. Shiva immediately put his plate down, pulled out his sword and fixed his shield on his back. Babravia saw Shiva across the caravan and drew his sword as well, giving quick, silent signals to his men to do the same. The Arishtani were battle-ready in a matter of seconds. Their swords unsheathed, Sati and Nandi too assumed traditional fighter positions. Sati whispered to Virini without turning, "Mother, please sit in the carriage and lock it from within. Take the maids inside but get them to disconnect the horses from the carriage first. We are not retreating and we don't want the enemy kidnapping you either." "Come with me," Sati pleaded Virini as her maids rushed to pull out the holds on the carnage_No, I'm staying here. Please hurry. We may not have much time. Virini rushed into the carriage followed by the maids who quickly locked it from the inside. At a distance, Babravia whispered to his aide. "I know their tactics. I have seen these cowards on the southern border. They will send an advance suicide party, pretend to retreat and draw us into a stronghold. I don't care about the losses. We will chase those bastards and destroy every single one of them. They have run into the Arishtani_. They will pay for this mistake." Shiva, meanwhile, tummed to Sati and whispered, "I think they must be aiming for a high-profile target. Nothing would be more significant than the royal family_. Do you think that you two should wait in the carriage?" Sati's eyes darted up towards Shiva in surprise. A pained look crossed her face before being replaced by a defiant glare. "I am going to fight. What's WMPG with her? What I said is completely logical. Make the main objective of the enemy difficult and they will lose will to fight." Shiva pushed these thoughts out of his mind so he could focus on the road. The rest of the caravan strained every nerve to listen intently for any movement from the enemy. They were prepared for the ambush. It was the enemy's turn to make the first move. Just as they were beginning to think that it may have been a false alarm, the sound of a conch shell reverberated from down the road, from the direction of Mount Manda. Shiva turned around but did not move. Whoever was making the noise was moving rapidly towards them. Shiva could not recognize the cacophonic sound. However, the Arishtani from the southern border knew exactly what it was. It was the sound of a Nagordwani conch. It was blown to announce the launch of a Naga attack. Though impatient to fight, Babravia did not forget the standard operating procedures. He gestured towards an aide, who rushed to the carriage and pulled out a red box fixed at the bottom. Kicking it open, the aide pressed a button on the side. A tubular chimney-like structure extended straight up from the box for nearly 25 feet. The chimney ensured that the smoke signal was not lost in the dense forest and could be seen by the scouts at both Devagli and Mount Mandan. The soldier picked up a branch from the fire and pushed it into the last of the 4 slots on the right side of the box. Red smoke fumed out of the chimney, signifying the presence of the highest level of danger. Help was 6 hours away. _4. If the backup rode hard, Babravia did not intend the battle to last that long. He intended to kill each of the Nagas and the Chandravanshis long before that. The attack began from the side of the road leading to Mount Manda. _A small band of 10 Chandravanshi soldiers charged at the Arishtani. _1 soldier was holding the Naga conch shell and blowing hard. Another amongst them had covered his entire face and head with a cloth, except for small slits for his eyes. The Naga himself, Shiva, did not move. He could see the battle raging at the far end of the caravan. There were only 10 Chandravanshis. The Arishtani did not need any support. He signaled to Sati and Nandi to stay where they were. Sati agreed, as she too expected this attack to be a ruse. The battle was short and fierce. The Chandravanshi soldiers fought viciously but were outnumbered as Babrangra expected. They turned in no time and retreated fast. After them yelled Babravia _kill them all. The Arishtani dashed behind their captain in pursuit of the retreating Chandravanshis _most of them did not hear Shiva cry out loud. No. Stay here. Don't chase them. By the time some of the Arishtani heard Shiva's order, a majority had already left, chasing the Chandravanshis Shiva was left in the clearing with Sati, Nandi and Lust 25 soldiers. Shiva turned back the side of the road leading to Devagiri, the direction from which the original sound of the cracking had come. He turned again to look at the remaining Arishtani pointing towards his back. He spoke with a voice that was both steady and calm. This is where the actual attack will come from. Get into a tight formation in 4s, facing that direction. Keep the princess in the middle. Weeks will have to hold them back for about 5 or 10 minutes. The other Arishtani will return when they realize that there are no Chandravanshis to fight in that direction. The Arishtani looked at Shiva and nodded. They were battle-hardened men. They liked nothing more than a clear-headed and calm leader who knew exactly what he was doing. They quickly got into the formation ordered by Shiva and waited. Then the real attack began. 40 Chandravanshi soldiers led by a figure emerged from the trees, walking slowly towards the Surivanshi caravan. The outnumbered Arishtani remained stationary, waiting for the enemy to come to them. Surrender the princess to us and we will leave, said the hooded figure. We want no unnecessary bloodshed. The same joker from the Brahma temple, he's got a strange costume, but he fights well. We don't want any bloodshed either, said Shiva. Leave quietly and we promise not to kill you. You're the one who's looking at death in the face, barbarian, said the hooded figure, conveying anger through his posture rather than his voice, which remained eerily composed. Shiva noticed the brown-turbaned officer look impatiently at the hooded figure. He clearly wanted to attack and get this over and done with. Dissension in the ranks. The only face I'm looking at is a stupid festival mask and it's soon going to be shoved down your pathetic little throat. Also tell that brainless lieutenant of yours that he shouldn't give battle plans away. The hooded figure remained calm, not coming to look at Vishwadhyamna_Dan. This man is good. This is the last Waiming, barbarian, repeated the hooded figure. Hand her over right now. Sati suddenly turned towards the carriage as she realized something, shouting, "Mother!" The new emergency conch shell close to the front grille. Blow it now. A loud plea for help emitted from the carriage. Babravia and his men had been summoned. The hooded figure cursed as he realized his advantage had been taken away. He had very little time to complete his operation. The other Surivanshis would be back soon. Charge! The Arishthanemi stayed in position. Steady, said Shiva. Wait for them. All you have to do is buy time. Keep the princess safe. Our friends will be back soon. As the Chandravanshis came closer, Sati suddenly broke through the cordon and attacked the hooded figure. Sati's surprise attack slowed the charge of the Chandra_Vanshis. The Arishthanemi had no choice. They charged at the Chandravanshis like vicious tigers. Shiva moved quickly to protect the right flank of Sati as an advancing Vishwadhyamna got dangerously close to her. Vishwadhyamna swung his sword to force Shiva out of his way. However, the speed of Shiva's advance left Vishwadhyamna unbalanced. Shiva easily parried the blow and pushed Vishwadhyamna back with his shield. Nandi meanwhile moved rapidly to the left of Sati to block the Chandravanshis trying to charge down that side. In the meantime, Sati was attacking the hooded figure with fierce blows. He, on the other hand, seemed intent upon simply defending himself and was not striking back. He wanted her alive and unharmed. Shiva cut Vishwadhyamna savagely across the shoulder that had been exposed when he was pushed back. Grimacing, Vishwadhyamna brought his shield up to fend off another attack from Shiva. In tandem, his sword arm thrust at Shiva's torso. Shiva quickly pulled his shield in to protect himself. But not quickly enough. Vishwadhyamna was able to slash Shiva's chest. Stepping back and to his right, Shiva brought his sword swiftly down in a brutal jab. While Vishwadhyamna promptly brought his shield up to block the attack, Shiva's unorthodox move unsettled him. He staggered back, realizing that Shiva was an excellent swordsman. It was going to be a long and hard duel. Nandi had already brought down one Chandravanshi soldier who had broken a law of combat that prohibited attacking below the waist, and cut Nandi's thigh. Bleeding profusely, Nandi was ferociously battling another soldier who had attacked him from the left. The Chandravanshi brought his shield down hard on Nandi's injured leg, making him stagger and fall. The Chandravanshi thought he had his man. Raising his sword high with both his hands, he was about to bring it down to finish the Ayab, but he suddenly arched for /Vakal, as if a brutal force had pounded him from the back. As he fell, Nandi saw a knife buried deep the Chandravansh's back. Looking up, he saw Shiva's left arm continue down in a smooth arc from the release of the dagger. With his right hand, Shiva brought his sword up to block a vicious cut from Vishwadhyamna. As Nandi stumbled back to his feet, Shiva reached behind to pull his shield in front again. The hooded figure knew that time was running out. The other Arishthanemi would eye back soon. He tried to move behind Sati, to club her on the back of the head and knock her unconscious, but she was too quick. She moved swiftly to the left to face her enemy Agam. Taking a knife out of her Angvastram folds with her left hand, she slashed outwards to cut deep across the hooded figure's immense stomach. The knife sliced through the robe, but its effect was broken by the armor. And then with a resounding roar, Babravia and the other Arishthanemi rushed back to fight alongside their mates. Seeing themselves vastly outnumbered, the hooded figure had no choice. He ordered his soldiers to retreat. Shiva stopped Babravia from chasing the Chandravanshis once again. Let them go, brave Babavia, said Shiva. We will have other opportunities to get them. Right now the primary objective is to protect the royal family. Babravia looked at Shiva with admiration for this foreigner fought, and not the blue throat of which he was. He nodded politely. It makes sense, foreigner. Babravia quickly formed the Arishtani soldiers into a tight perimeter and pulled the wounded within. Dead bodies were not touched. At least 3 Arishtani had lost their lives while 9 Chandravanshi bodies lay in the clearing. The last one had taken his own life since he was too wounded to escape. Better to meet one's maker than to fall into enemy hands alive and reveal secrets. Babravra ordered his soldiers to stay low and keep their shields in front for protection against any arrows. And thus they waited till the rescue party arrived. "My God!" cried an anxious Daksha as he hugged Sati tight. The rescue party of 500 soldiers had reached by the 4th hour of the second prahar. Daksha, Prahaspati and Kanakala had accompanied the caravan despite Parvatshwar's warnings of the risks. Releasing Sati from his gap, Daksha whispered as a small tear escaped his eyes, "You are not injured, are you?" 3 "I am all right, father," said Sati self-consciously. "Just a few cuts." "Nothingness." She fought very bravely, said Virini, as she beamed with pride. "I think that is a mother's bias," said Sati, as her serious expression was restored. "Tum towards Shiva," she continued, "it was Shiva who saved the day, father. He figured out the real plan of the Chandravanshis and rallied everyone at the crucial moment. It was because of him that we beat them back." "Oh, I think she's too generous," said Shiva. "She's impious finally." "She isn't being generous at all, my lord," said a visibly grateful Daksha. "You have begun your magic already. We have actually beaten back a terrorist attack. You don't know how significant this is for us." "But it wasn't a terrorist attack, Your Highness," said Shiva. "It was an attempt to kidnap." "Kidnap?" asked Daksha. "That hooded man certainly wanted her alive and unharmed." "What hooded man?" cried Daksha, alarmed. "That was the Naga, Your Highness," said Shiva, surprised at Daksha's hysterical response. "I have seen that man fight. He is an excellent warrior. A little slow in his movements, but excellent all the same. But while fighting Sati he was trying his best not to hurt her." The color drained completely from Daksha's face. Virini glared at her husband with a strange mixture of fear and anger. The expressions on their faces made Shiva feel uncomfortable, as if he was intruding on a private family moment. "Father," asked a worried Sati, "are you all right?" Hearing no response from Daksha, Shiva turned to Sati and said, "Perhaps best if you speak to your family alone. If you don't mind, I will go check if Nandi and the other soldiers are all right." Parvatshwar was walking amongst his men, checking on the injured and ensuring that they received medical help. Babravra walked 2 steps behind. The general came up to the Chandravanshi who had been killed by Shiva while protecting Nandi. He roared in horror, "This man has been stabbed in the back." "Yes, my lord," said Babravia with his head bowed. "Who did this? Who broke the sacred rules of combat?" "I think it was the foreigner, my lord. But I heard that he was trying to protect Captain Nandi who had been attacked by this Chandravanshi and the Chandravanshi himself was not following the combat rules, having attacked Nandi below the waist." Parvatshwar turned with a withering look at Babravia, causing him to cower in fear. "Rules are rules," he growled. "They are meant to be followed even if your enemy ignores them." "Yes, my lord." "Go make sure that the dead get proper cremations." "Including the Chandravanshis my lord," asked a surprised Babravra "but they are terrorists." "They may be terrorists," snarled Parvatshwar "but we are Surivanshis we are the followers of Lord Ram. There are civilities that we maintain even with our enemies. The Chandravanshis will get proper cremations. Is that clear?" "Yes, my lord." Ksata 49 "Why do you call the foreigner your lord?" asked an injured Arishtani lying next to Nandi. Shiva had just departed after spending half an hour with Nandi and the other injured soldiers. If one had a look at the injured at this point, it would be impossible to believe that they had fought a battle just a few hours earlier. They were talking jovially with each other. Some were ribbing their mates about how they had fallen for the red herring towards the beginning of the battle. In the Kshatriya way, to laugh in the face of death was the ultimate mark of a man. "Because he is my lord," answered Nandi simply. "But he is a foreigner, a caste unmarked foreigner," said the Arishtani. "He is a brave warrior, no doubt. But there are so many brave warriors in Meluha. What makes him so special? And why does he spend so much time with the royal family?" "I can't answer that, my friend. You will know when the time is right." The Arishtani looked at Nandi quizzically, then shook his head and smiled. He was a soldier. He concerned himself only with the here and now. Larger questions did not dwell for too long in his mind. "In any case, I think the time is right to tell you that you are a brave man, my friend. I saw you fight despite your injury. You don't know the meaning of the word surrender. I would be proud to have you as my Briata." That was a big statement from the Arishtani. The Briata system that was prevalent in the Meluhan army assigned a mate of equal rank to each soldier up to the rank of captain. The Avobriatas would be like brothers who would always fight together and ich3k out for each other. They would willingly fight the world for each other, would never love the same woman, and would always tell each other the truth, no matter how bitter. The Arishtani were elite soldiers of the empire. An Arishtani offered to be a martyr only to his own kind. Nandi knew that he could never really be the Arishtani's Briata. He had to stay with the Lord. But the honor of being offered the brotherhood of an Arishtani was enough to bring tears to Nandi's eyes. "Don't get teary on me now," chortled the Arishtani. Wrinkling his nose in amusement, Nandi burst out in laughter as he slapped the Arishtani on his arm. "What is your name, my friend?" asked Nandi. "Kaustav," replied the Arishtani. "Someday we shall battle the main Chandravanshi army together, my friend. And by the grace of Lord Ram, we will kill all those bastards. By Lord Agni, we will." "It was interesting how you got into the Naga's mind," said Brahaspati as he watched Shiva getting the gash on his torso cleaned and dressed. Shiva had insisted that his injuries receive medical attention only after every other soldier's wounds had been tended. "Well, I can't really explain it," said Shiva. "How the Naga would think just seemed so obvious to me." "Well, I can explain it." "Really? What?" "The explanation is that you are the omnipotent N, whose name cannot be spoken," said Brahaspati, opening his eyes wide and conjuring his hands up like an ancient magician. They burst out laughing, causing Shiva to bend backwards. The military doctor gave Shiva a stern look, at which he immediately quietened down and let him finish tending to the wound. Having applied the Ayurvedic paste and covered it with the medicinal neem leaf, the doctor bandaged the wound with a cotton cloth. "You will need to change that every second day, foreigner," said the doctor, pointing at the bandage. "The royal doctor in Devagiri will be able to do it for you. And don't let this area get wet for a week. Also, avoid the sumras during this period since you will not be able to bathe." "Though he doesn't need the sumras," joked Brahaspati. "It's already done all the damage it can on him." Shiva and Brahaspati collapsed into helpless laughter again as the doctor walked away, shaking his head in exasperation. "But seriously," said Brahaspati, calming down. "Why would they attack you? You have not harmed anybody." "I don't think the attack was on me. I think it was for Sati." "Sati? Why Sati? That's even more bizarre." "It probably wasn't specifically for Sati," said Shiva. "I think the target was the royal family. The primary target was probably the emperor. Since he wasn't there, they went for the secondary target, Sati. I think the aim was to kidnap a royal and use that person as leverage." Brahaspati did not respond. He seemed worried. Clasping his hands together and bringing them close to his face, he looked into the distance. Deep in thought, Shiva reached into his pouch and pulled out his chillum, before carefully filling it with some dried marijuana. Brahaspati turned to look at his friend, unhappy with what he was doing. I've never told you this before, Shiva, and I probably shouldn't as well since you are a free man, said Brahaspati. But I consider you my friend. And it is my duty to tell you the truth. I have seen some Egyptian merchants in Karakapa with this marijuana habit. It's not good for you. You're wrong, my friend, said Shiva, GNNNMG broadly. This is actually the best habit in the world. You probably don't know, Shiva. This has many harmful side effects. And worst of all, it even harms your memory, causing untold damage to your ability to draw on past knowledge. Shiva's face suddenly became uncharacteristically serious. He gazed back at Brahaspati with a melancholic smile. That is exactly why it is good, my friend. No idiot who smokes this is scared of forgetting. Shiva lit up his chillum, took a deep drag and continued, they are scared of not forgetting. Brahaspati stared sharply at Shiva, wondering what terrible past could have prompted his friend to get addicted to the weed. Chapter 11. Neelkanth unveiled the next morning. The royal caravan resumed its journey to Devajal after spending the night at a temporary camp in the clearing. It wasn't safe to travel at night under the circumstances. The wounded, including Nandi, were lying in the first 3 carriages and the 5th one. The royal family and Shiva travelled in the 4th. All the soldiers who had fought in the previous day's battle were given the privilege of riding on horses. Relative comfort. Brahaspati and Kanakala walked along with the rest of the troops, in mourning for the 3 slain Parvateshwar, Babravia and 2 other soldiers bore a makeshift wooden palanquin that carried 3 containing the ashes of the martyrs. The would be given to their families for a ceremonial submersion in the Saraswati. Shiva, Sati and Nandi too wanted to walk, but the doctor insisted they were in no condition to do so. Parvati swore with pride at the bravery of his soldiers. His boys, as he called them, had shown they were made of a metal forged in Indra's own. He cursed himself for not being there to fight with them. He castigated himself for not being there to protect his goddaughter, Sati, when she was in danger. He prayed for the day when he would finally get a chance to destroy the cowardly Chandravanshis. He also silently pledged that he would anonymously donate his salary for the next 6 months to the families of the slain soldiers. I didn't think he would fall to these levels, exclaimed Daksha in disgust. Shiva and Sati, comfortably asleep in the carriage, were woken up by Daksha's outburst. Virini looked up from the book that she was reading, narrowing her eyes to concentrate on her husband. Who, Your Highness? Asked Shiva groggily. Dilapa. That blight on humanity, said Daksha, barely concealing his loathing. Virini continued to stare hard at her husband. She slowly reached out, pulled Sati's hand in hers, brought it close to her lips and kissed it gently. Then she put her other hand protectively on top of Sati's hand. Sati looked at her mother warmly with a hint of a smile and rested her tired head on Virini's shoulders. Who is Dipa, Your Highness? Asked Shiva. He is the Emperor of Swadweep, answered Daksha. Everyone knows that Sati is the apple of my eye. And they were possibly trying to kidnap her in order to force my hand. Shiva gazed at Daksha with sympathy. He could understand the outrage of the Emperor at the latest Chandravanshi treachery, and to reduce yourself to a level where you use a Naga for this nefarious plan, said a furious Daksha. This shows what the Chandravanshis are capable of. I don't know if the Naga was being used, Your Highness, said Shiva softly. It appeared as how he was the leader. Daksha, however, was too lost in his righteous anger to even explore Shiva's insinuation. The Naga may have been the leader of this particular platoon, my lord, but he would almost certainly be under the overall command of the Chandravanshis. No Naga can be a leader. They are cursed people born with horrific deformities and diseases in this birth as a punishment for terrible crimes that they have committed in their previous birth. The Nagas are embarrassed to even show their face to anyone. But they have tremendous power and skills. Their presence strikes terror in the heart of all Meluhans, and most as well. The Chandravanshis have sunk low enough to even consort with those deformed demons. They hate us so much that they have become blind to the sins they are bringing upon their own souls by interacting with the Nagas_Shiva. Sati and Virini continued to hear Daksha's ranting in silence. Coming towards Shiva, Daksha continued, "Do you see the kind of vermin we are up against, my lord? They have no code, no honor. And they outnumber us 10 to 1. We need your help, my lord. Is not just my people, but my family as well. We are in your highness, I will do all that I can to help you," said Shiva. "But I am not a general. I cannot lead an army against the Chandravanshis. I am just a simple tribal leader. What difference can one man make? At least let me announce your presence to the court and the people." "My lord," urged Daksha, "just spend a few weeks traveling through the empire. Your presence will raise the morale of the people. Look at the difference you made yesterday. We actually foiled a terrorist attack because of you, because of your presence of mind. Please, let me announce your arrival. That is all I ask." Shiva looked at Daksha's emist face with trepidation. He could feel Sati's and Virini's eyes on him, especially Sati's. "What am I getting into?" "All right," said Shiva in resignation. Daksha rose and embraced Shiva in a tight grip of gratitude. "Thank you, my lord," exclaimed Daksha, even as Shiva released himself from the warm hug with a sharp intake of air. "I will announce your presence at the court tomorrow itself. Then you can leave for a tour of the empire in another 3 weeks. I will personally make all the arrangements. You will have a full brigade traveling with you for security. Parvati and Sati will accompany you as well." "No," protested Virini in a harsh tone that Sati had never heard her mother use. "Sati is not going anywhere. I am not going to allow you to put our daughter's life in danger. She is staying with me in Devagiri." "Virini, don't be silly," said Daksha calmly. "You really think that something would happen to Sati if the Lord Neelkanth was around? She is safest when she is with the Lord. She is not going." "And that is final," glared Virini in a firm voice, clutching Sati's hand tightly. Daksha turned towards Shiva, ignoring Virini. "Don't worry, my lord. I will have all the arrangements made. Parvati and Sati will also travel with you. You will just have to restrain Sati sometimes." Shiva frowned. "So did Sati." Daksha smiled genially. "My darling daughter has the tendency to be a little too brave at times. Like this one time, when she was just a child, she had jumped in all by herself, with nothing but her short sword, to save an old woman being attacked by a pack of wild dogs. She nearly got herself killed for her pains. It was one of the worst days of my life. I think it is the same impulsiveness which worries Virini as well." Shiva looked at Sati. There was no expression on her face. "That's why," continued Daksha, "see, I am suggesting that you keep her restrained. Then there should be no problem." Shiva glanced again at Sati. He felt a surge of admiration coupled with the boundless love he felt for her. She did what I couldn't do. The next morning Shiva found himself seated next to Daksha in the Meluhan royal court. The magnificence of the court left him wonderstruck. Since this was a public building, the usual Meluhan reticence had been bypassed. It was built next to the great public bath. While the platform had been constructed of the standard kill bricks, the structure itself, including the floor, was made of teak wood. Brawny wooden pillars had been laid in to set grooves on the platform. The pillars had been extravagantly sculpted celestial figures like apsaras, devas and rishis, celestial umphs, gods and sages, amoings teotheras _ an ornately carved wooden roof that had been inlaid with gold and silver designs crowned the top of the pillars. Pennants of the holy blue color and royal red color hung from the ceiling. Each niche on the walls had paintings depicting the life of Lord Ram. But Shiva had little time to admire the glorious architecture of the court. Daksha's expectations would be apparent in his speech and were causing him considerable discomfort. "As many of you may have heard," announced Daksha, "there was another terrorist attack yesterday. The Chandravanshis tried to harm the royal family on the road from Mount Manda to Devajal. Murmurs of dismay filled the court. The question troubling everyone was how the Chandravanshis had discovered the route to Mount Manda. Shiva meanwhile kept reminding himself that this wasn't a terrorist attack, it was just a kidnap attempt. The Chandra-Vanshis had planned their attack with great deception, said Daksha, drowning out the murmurs with his booming voice. The talented architects of the court had designed the structure in such a manner that any 173 ice emanating from the royal platform resonated across the entire hall. But we beat them back for the first time in decades. We beat back a cowardly terrorist attack. An exultant roar went up in the court at this announcement. They had beaten back open military assaults from the Chandravanshis before. But until today, the Meluhans had found no answer to the dreaded terrorist strikes. This was because the terrorists usually launched surprise attacks on non-military locations and fled before the Surivanshi soldiers could get there. Raising his hand to quieten the crowd, Daksha continued, we beat them back because the time for truth to triumph has finally arrived. We beat them back because we were led by Father Manu's messenger. We beat them back because the time for justice has come. The murmurs grew louder. Had the Nilkanth finally arrived? Everyone had heard the rumors. But nobody believed them. There had been three many false declarations in the past. Daksha raised his hand. He waited just enough for the anticipation to build up. And then jubilantly bellowed, yes. The rumors are true. Our savior has come. The Nilkanth has come. Shiva winced at being put up for display on the royal platform, his cravat removed. The Meluhan elite thronged around him, their statements buzzing in Shiva's ears. We had heard the rumors, my lord. But we didn't believe them to be true. We have nothing to fear anymore, my lord. The days of evil are numbered. Where are you from, my lord? Mount Kailash. Where is that, my lord? Do you think I could go on a pilgrimage there? Answering these questions repeatedly and being confronted by the blind faith of these people disturbed Shiva. The moment he had a chance, he requested Daksha for permission to leave the court. A few hours later, Shiva sat in the quiet comfort of his chamber, contemplating what had happened at the court. The cravat was back around his neck by the holy lake. Can I really deliver these people from their troubles? What did you say, my lord? Asked Nandi, who was sitting patiently at a distance. The faith your people place upon me makes me anxious, said Shiva, loud enough for Nandi to hear. If there was a battle, I could take on any enemy in order to protect your people. But I am no leader, and I am certainly not a destroyer of evil. I am sure that you can lead us to victory against anyone, my lord. You beat them back on the road to Devajin. That wasn't a genuine victory, said Shiva dismissively. They were a small platoon, aiming to kidnap and not to kill. If we face a well-organized and large army, whose aim is to kill, the situation may be very different. To me it appears that Meluha is ranged against formidable and ruthless enemies. The solution cannot lie in reposing faith in an individual. Your people need to adapt to the changing times. Perhaps your inclement avarice will find you helpless in the face of such a cold-blooded enemy. A new system is needed. I am hardly a god to perform miracles. You are right, my lord, said Nandi, with all the conviction of a simple, lucky man not troubled by too many thoughts. A new system is required, and I obviously don't know what this new system should be. But I do understand one thing. More than 1,000 years back, we faced a similar situation and Lord Ram came and taught us a better way. I am sure that, similarly, you will lead us to a superior path. I am no Lord Ram, Nandi. How can this fool even compare me to Lord Ram, the Meridapumshotam, the ideal follower of laws? You are better than Lord Ram, my Ide, said Nandi. Stop this nonsense, Nandi. What have I done to even be compared with Lord Ram? Let alone be considered better. But you will do deeds that will place you above him, my lord. Just shut up, Ksata 4 At the preparations for Shiva's tour of the empire were in full swing. Shiva, however, still found time for Sati's dance lessons every afternoon. They were developing a quiet friendship. But Shiva agonized over the fact that while she showed respect, there was no feeling of emotions in her or expression of feelings. In the meantime, Shiva's tribe had been brought over to Devajayari, where they were given comfortable accommodation, and Iabs_Badra, however, was not to stake Sith the Gunners. He had instead been assigned to accompany the Neelkanth on his voyage. Veetbhadra. /Ian the hell did you get this name? Shiva asked Bhadra, meeting him for the first time since his departure from Kashmir. Stupid reason, actually, smiled Bhadra, whose slight hump had disappeared completely. Thanks to the magical Samras_ on the journey here, I saved the caravan leader from a tiger attack. He gave me the title for a brave man before my name. You fought a tiger single-handed? Asked Shiva, clearly impressed. Bhadra nodded, feeling awkward. Well, then you really deserve to be called Veerbhadra. Yeah, right, smiled Bhadra, suddenly turning serious. The crazy label of destroyer of evil, are you okay with this? You are not giving in to these pleas just because of your past, are you? I am going with the flow right now, my friend. Something tells me that despite all my misgivings, I can actually help these people. These Meluhans are completely mad, no doubt. And I certainly can't do all that they expect of me. But I do feel that if I can make a difference, however small, I will be able to reconcile myself with my past. If you are sure, then so am I. I will follow you anywhere. Don't follow. Walk beside me. Veerbhadra laughed and embraced his friend. I've missed you, Shiva. I've missed you too. Let's meet in the garden in the afternoon. I've got a great batch of marijuana. Is a deal. Brahaspati too had sought permission to travel with Shiva. He explained that a Mesopotamian ship carrying some rare chemicals, essential for a critical experiment, was to dock at the port city of Karakarpa soon. His team had to check and obtain those materials anyway. It would be a good idea to do this while traveling with Shiva. Daksha said that he had no problems with Brahaspati pining the tour if the Lord was okay with it. Shiva agreed enthusiastically with the suggestion. 3 weeks after the court announcement about the Neelkanth, the day finally dawned for the commencement of Shiva's tour of the empire. On the morning of the day itself, Daksha walked into Shilpa's chambers. You could have summoned me, Your Highness, said Shiva with an namaste. You did not need to come here. It is my pleasure to come to your chambers, my end, smiled Daksha, returning Shiva's greeting with a low bow. I thought I would introduce the physician who would be traveling with your entourage. She arrived from Kashmir last night. Daksha moved aside to let his escort show the doctor into the RCH3M_Ayurvedi, exclaimed Shiva, his face lit up in a brilliant smile. It's so GCH3D to see you again. The pleasure is all mine, my lord, beamed Ayurvedi, as she bent down to touch Shiva's feet. Shiva immediately moved back to neatly sidestep Ayurvedi. I have told you before, Ayurvedi, said Shiva. You are a giver of life. Please don't embarrass me by touching my feet, and you are the Neelkanth, my lord. The destroyer of evil, said Ayurvedi with devotion. How can you deny me the privilege of being blessed by you? Shiva shook his head in despair and let Ayurvedi touch his feet. He gently touched her head and blessed her. A few hours later, Shiva, Sati, Parvati, Brahaspati, Ayurvedi, Kritika, Nandi and Veerbhadra set off. Accompanying them was a brigade of 1,500 soldiers, 25 handmaidens and 50 support staff for their security and comfort. They planned to travel by road till the city of Kotwa on the Bees River. From there on, they would use boats to travel to the port city of Karakarpa. Then they would move due east to the city of Lothal. Finally, they would move north by road to the inland delta of the Saraswati and then by boats back to Devajayari. Chapter 12 Journey through Meluha. Who was Manu? Asked Shiva. I have heard of him quite often being referred to as the Athel _ the caravan had been travelling for a few days on the broad road from Devajili to Kotwa _ in the centre. It consisted of a row of 7 carriages identical to the ones used during the trip to Mandan. 5 of them were empty. Shiva, Sati, Brahaspati and Kritika travelled in the second carriage. Parkateshwar was in the 5th, along with Ayurvati and his key brigadiers. The general's presence meant that every rule had to be adhered to strictly. Hence Nandi, whose rank did not allow him to travel in the carriage, was riding a horse with the rest of the cavalry. Veerbhadra had been inducted as a soldier in Nandi's Platkh 3N_ led by their respective captains. The brigade were in standard forward, rear and side defence formations around the caravan. Both Brahaspati and Sati started answering Shiva simultaneously. Lord Manu was there. They both stopped talking. After you please, Brahaspati, I said. Sati. No, no, said Brahaspati with a warm smile. Why don't you tell him the story? He knew whose voice the Neelkanth would prefer. Of course not, Brahaspati too. How can I supersede you? It would be completely improper. Will somebody answer me, or are you two going to keep up this elaborate protocol forever? Asked Shiva. All right, laughed Brahaspati. Don't tumble all over now. That is hilarious, Brahaspati smiled. Shiva. Keep this up and you might actually get someone to laugh in 100 years. As Brahaspati and Shiva chortled, Sati was astounded by the inappropriate manner in which the conversation was progressing. But if the revered chief scientist seemed comfortable, then she would desist from commenting. And in any case, how could she reprimand Shiva? Her code of honor forbade it. He had saved her life. Twice. Well, you are right about Lord Manu being the father, said Brahaspati _ he is considered the progenitor of our civilization by all the people of India, including, asked Shiva incredulously. Yes, we believe so. In any case, Lord Manu lived more than 8,500 years ago. He was apparently a prince from South India. A land way beyond the Narmada River, where the earth ends and the great ocean begins. That land is the Sangam Tamil _ Sangam Tamil. Yes. Sangam Tamil was the richest and most powerful country in the world at the time. Lord Manu's family, the Pandyas, had ruled that land for many generations. However, from the records left by Lord Manu, we know that by his time the kings had lost their old code of honor. Having degenerated into corrupt avarice, they spent their days indulging in the pleasures of their fabulous wealth rather than being earnest about their duties and their spiritual life. Then a terrible calamity occurred. The seas rose and destroyed their entire civilization. My God, exclaimed Shiva. Lord Manu had foreseen this day and had in fact prepared for it. He believed that it was the decadence his old country had fallen into that had incurred the wrath of the gods. In order to escape the inevitable calamity, he led a band of his followers to the northern, higher lands in a fleet of ships. He established his first camp at a place called Miragar deep in the western mountains of present-day Meluha _ deeply committed to establishing a moral and just society. He gave up his princely robes and became a priest. In fact, the term for priests in India, Pandit, is derived from Lord Manu's family name, Pandya. Interesting. So how did Lord Manu's little band grow into the formidable India we see today? The years immediately following their arrival at Miragar were harsh on them. With each year's monsoon, the flooding and sea tides would become stronger. But after many years and with the force of Lord Manu's prayers, the anger of the gods abated and the waters stopped advancing. The sea, however, never receded to its original levels. This means that somewhere in the deep south, the sea still covers the ancient Sangam Tamil cities. We believe so, answered Brahaspati _ once the sea stopped and incmg, Lord Manu and his men came down from the mountains. They were shocked to see that the minor stream that was the Indus had now become a massive river. Many other rivulets across northern India too had swollen and 6 great rivers had emerged: Indus, Saraswati, Yamuna, Ganga, Sarayu and Brahmaputra. Lord Manu said the rivers started flowing because the temperatures of our land rose with the wrath of the gods. With the rise in temperatures, huge channels of ice or glaciers frozen high in the Himalayas began to melt, creating the Nvas_hum___ villages, and later cities, grew on the banks of these Nvas_. Thus our land of the 7 rivers, Sapt Sindhu, was born out of the destruction of the Sangan Tamil 7. But you mentioned the creation of 6 Nvas in North India. Yes, that's true. The 7th river already existed. It is the Narmada and it became our southern border. Lord Manu strictly forbade his descendants to go south of the Narmada. And if they did so, they could never return. This is a law that we believe even the Chandravanshis adhere to. So what are Lord Manu's other laws? There are numerous laws actually. They are all listed in an extensive treatise called the Manusmriti. Would you be interested in listening to the entire text? Tempting, smiled Shiva. But I think I'll pass. With your permission, my lords, perhaps we can further discuss Lord Manu's guidance to our society over lunch, suggested Kritikaksotta. For at a short distance from the road on which the Nilkantha's caravan travelled, a small band of about 40 men trudged silently along the bees. 1 in 2 men of the platoon carried a small coracle on his head. It was typical of this region. The locals made small and light boats made of bamboo, cane and rope, portable enough to be carried by a single man on his head. Each boat could ferry 2 people with relative safety and speed. At the head of the platoon was a young man with a proud battle scar adorning his face, his head crowned with a brown turban. A little ahead of him walked a hooded figure. With his head bowed, his eyes scrunched, he took slow methodical steps, his mind lost in unfathomable thoughts. His breathing was hard. He brought his hand up languidly to rub his masked forehead. There was a leather bracelet on his right wrist with the serpent arm symbol embroidered on it. Vishwadhyamna, said the hooded figure. We will enter the river from here. / Whenever we come close to populated areas, we will move away from the river to avoid detection. We have to reach Karakapa within 2 months. Karakapa, my lord, asked a surprised Vishwadhyamna. I was under the impression that we were to have a secret audience with the queen outside Lothar. No, answered the hooded figure. We will meet her outside Karakapa. Yes, my lord, answered Vishwadhyamna. As he looked back in the direction of the road to Kotwa. He knew that his lord would have dearly liked to make one more attempt to kidnap the princess. He also knew that it was foolhardy to endeavor to do so given the strength of the force accompanying the caravan. In any case, they were behind schedule for their main mission. They had to meet the queen urgently. Turning towards one of his soldiers, Vishwadhyamna ordered, Srikta, place your coracle in the river and give me per oar. Ikes will row the lord through this part of the journey. Srikta immediately did as instructed. Vishwadhyamna and the hooded figure were the first of the platoon to enter the river. Vishwadhyamna had already started rockswing by the time his men started placing their boats into the at a distance further down the river. The hooded figure saw 2 women lounging carelessly on a boat. One of the women was sloppily splashing water from the side of the boat onto her friend, who was making hopeless attempt at avoiding getting wet. The childish game caused their boat to sway dangerously from side to side. The hooded figure saw that the women had not detected a crocodile that had entered the river from the opposite bank. Having spied what must have looked like an appetizing meal, the crocodile was swimming swiftly towards the women's boat. Look behind you, shouted the hooded figure, as he motioned to Vishwadhyamna to row rapidly in their direction. The 7 men could not hear him from the distance. What they did see, however, was 2 men rowing towards them. They could see that one of them was almost a giant, covered from head to toe in a strange robe, his face hidden behind a mask. This man was making frantic gestures. Behind the duo were a large number of soldiers swiftly pushing their boats onto the river. That was all the waying the women needed. Thinking that the men were coming towards them with evil intent, the women put all their effort into hastily rowing away from the hooded figure's boat into the path of the crocodile. "No!" shouted the hooded figure. He grabbed the oar from Vishwadyumna, using his powerful arms to row rapidly. He was shortening the distance between them by the minute. But not fast enough. As the crocodile closed in on the women's boat, it dived underwater and charged at it, rocking it with its massive body. The tiny vessel tilted and capsized, throwing the women into the bees. Screams of terror rent the air as the Emdman fought to stay afloat. The crocodile had moved too far ahead in its dash. Tumbling around, it swam towards the struggling women. The delay of those crucial seconds proved fateful for the women. The rescue boat moved in between the crocodile and them. Tumbling towards Vishwadyumna, the hooded figure ordered, "Save the women." Before Vishwadyumna could react, he had flung his robe aside and dived into the river. With his knife held tight between his teeth, he swam towards the advancing crocodile. Vishwadyumna pulled one of the women into the boat. She had already lost consciousness. Tumbling to the other woman, he reassured, "I am coming back soon." Vishwadyumna tumbled and paddled vigorously towards the bank. On the way he passed some of his soldiers. "Row quickly. The Lord's life is in danger." The other soldiers paddled towards the area where the hooded figure had dived into the river. The water had turned red with blood from the battle raging underwater. The soldiers said a silent prayer to Lord Vieram, the god of the water and the seas, hoping that the blood did not belong to their lord. One of the soldiers was about to jump into the water with his sword when the hooded figure emerged onto the surface, soaked in blood. It was that of the crocodile. He swam forcefully towards the other it-sevened man who was on the verge of losing consciousness. Reaching her in the nick of time, he pulled her head out of the water. Meanwhile, of the Chandravanshi soldiers dived off their coracle. "My lord, please get into the boat," said one of them. "We will swim ashore." "Help the woman first," replied the hooded figure. The soldiers pulled the unconscious woman onto the coracle. The hooded figure then fully climbed aboard and rowed towards the shore. By the time he reached the river bank, the other woman had been revived by Vishwadyumna. She was obviously disoriented by the rapid chain of events. "Are you all right?" Vishwadyumna asked the woman. In answer, the woman looked beyond Vishwadyumna and screamed. Vishwadyumna turned around. On the river bank, the hooded figure coming ashore carrying the other woman's limp body. His clothes were glued to his massive body. To the disoriented woman, the crocodiles all over his clothes seemed like that of her friend. "What have you done, you beast?" shrieked the woman. The Naga looked up abruptly. His eyes showed mild surprise, but he refrained from saying anything. He gently laid the unconscious woman on the ground. As he did so, the mask on his face came undone. The woman next to Vishwadyumna stared at him with horror. "Naga," she screeched. Before Vishwadyumna could react, she leapt to her feet and fled screaming, "Help! Help! A Naga is eating my friend." The Naga looked at the fleeing Emdmanks with melancholic eyes. He shut the windows to his tormented soul and shook his head slightly. Vishwadyumna meanwhile tumbled to see his lord's face for the first time in years. He immediately lowered his gaze, but not before he had seen the rare emotion of intense pain and sorrow in his lord's normally expressionless eyes. Seething with anger, Vishwadyumna drew his sword, swearing to slay the ungrateful wench he had just saved. "No," Vishwadyumna ordered the Naga pulling his mask back on. He turned to his other soldiers. "Revive her." "My lord," argued Vishwadyumna her friend will bring others here. "Let's leave this woman to her fate and go." "But my lord, someone may come any time now. We must escape." "Not till we've saved her," said the Naga, in his usual calm voice. The royal party, including Nandi and Veerbhadra, were sitting together enjoying their lunch in the courtyard of the rest house they had stopped at. Half the brigade had sat down for their meal. They needed all the energy they could muster in order to march in this scorching heat. Parvati had come in to check on the food arrangements. He was especially concerned about Sati's comfort. However, he had refused to join them. He was going to eat later with his soldiers. A loud commotion from the area of one of the perimeter guards disturbed Shiva. He got up to investigate, motioning to Brihaspati, Nandi and Veerbhadra to remain seated. Parvati too had heard the racket and was moving towards the uproar. "Please save her," cried the woman. "A naga is eating her alive." "I am sorry," answered the captain. "But we have strict orders. We are not to leave the vicinity of this rest house under any circumstances." "What is the matter?" asked Parvati. The captain spun around in surprise, saluted and bowed low. "My lord, this woman alleges that a naga has attacked her friend. She's asking for help." Parvati looked at the woman intensely. He would have liked nothing more than to chase the naga party and destroy them. But his orders were crystal clear. He was not to leave the Nilkanth and Sati. Their protection was the only objective of the brigade. But he was a Kshatriya. What kind of Kshatriya would he be if he didn't fight to protect the weak? Seething at the restrictions forced upon him, Parvati was about to say something when Shiva appeared. "What's the matter?" asked Shiva. "My lord," said the captain in awe. He scarce believed that he was actually in the presence of the Nilkanth. "This woman claims that her friend has been attacked by Nagas," he gasped. "We are concerned that it may be a trap. We have heard about the Chandravanshi duplicity on the Mount Manda road." Shiva heard his inner voice cry. "Go back. Help her." Drawing his sword in one smooth motion, he told the woman, "Take me to your friend." Parvati looked at Shiva with respect. It was mild, but it evas respect all the same. He immediately drew his own sword and turned to the captain, "Follow us with your platoon. Brigadier Vraker, command per men to be on alert for any surprise attack. The safety of Varanses is paramount." Shiva and Parvati ran behind the armed man who seemed to lead them with ease. She was obviously a local. The captain trailed them with his platoon of 30 soldiers. After sprinting for the larger part of half an hour, they finally reached the riverside to find a dazed woman sitting on the ground. Breathing heavily, she was staring in shock at an imaginary vision in the distance. There was blood all over her clothes, but strangely, there were many footsteps that appeared to be coming out of the river and going back in. The captain looked at the woman who had led them here with suspicious eyes. Turning to his soldiers, he ordered, "Form a perimeter around the general and the Nilkanth. It could be a trap." "She was being eaten alive, I tell you," screeched the woman, absolutely stunned to see her friend alive and unharmed. "No, she wasn't," he said Shiva calmly. He pointed at the corpse of the crocodile floating in the river. A large flock of crows had settled on the carcass, fighting viciously over its entrails. "Somebody just saved her from that crocodile. Whoever it was has rowed across the river, my lord," said the captain, pointing towards the heavy footmarks close to the river. "Why would a naga risk his own life to save this woman?" asked Shiva. Parvati seemed equally surprised. This was completely unlike the usually bloodthirsty nagas they had dealt with until now. "My lord," said the captain, addressing both Shiva and Parvati, "The women appear safe. Perhaps it is not wise for everybody to stay here. With your permission, I will escort these women back to their village and rejoin the caravan at Kotwa. You could retire to the rest house." "All right," said Parvati. "Take 4 soldiers along with you just in case." Both Shiva and Parvati walked back, baffled by this inexplicable event. It was late in the evening. Shiva, Brihaspati, Nandi and Veerbhadra sat quietly around the campfire. Shiva tummed to see Sati sitting on the rest house veranda at a distance, along with Autvati and Kritika. They were absorbed in a serious conversation. Parvati was moving among his soldiers, as usual, personally supervising the security arrangements of the camp and the comfort of his boys. "Is ready," Shiva said. Veerbhadra, handing over the chillum to the Neelkanth. Shiva brought the pipe up to his lips and pulled hard. He relaxed visibly. Feeling the need for respite, he smoked some more before passing it back to his friend. Veerbhadra offered it to Brihaspati and Nandi, both of whom declined. Brihaspati stared at Shiva, who kept stealing glances at Sati. He smiled and shook his head. "What?" asked Shiva, who had noticed Brihaspati's gesture. "I understand your longing, my friend," whispered Brihaspati. But what you are hoping for is quite difficult, almost impossible. It can't be easy when W's so valuable, can it?" Brihaspati smiled and patted Shiva on his hand. Veerbhadra knew what his friend needed. Dance and music. It always improved his mood. "Don't people sing and dance in this wretched country?" "Private Veerbhadra," said Nandi, his tone different. "Xith a subordinate. Firstly, this country is not wretched. It's the greatest land in the world." Veerbhadra playfully put his hands together in a mock apologue. "Secondly," continued Nandi, "we dance only when an occasion demands it, like the Holi festival or a public performance. But the greatest joy derived from dancing is when you do it for no reason at all, Captain," said Veerbhadra. "I agree," said Shiva. Nandi immediately fell silent without any warning. Veerbhadra suddenly burst forth into one of the folk songs of his region. Shiva smiled at his friend, for Veerbhadra was singing one of his favorites. Continuing to sing, Veerbhadra rose slowly and began dancing to the lilting tune, now accompanied by Shiva. The combination of marijuana and dance immediately changed his mood. Brihaspati stared at Shiva, first in shock and then with pleasure. He noticed a pattern in their dancing, a smooth six-step combination that was repeated rhythmically. Shiva reached out and pulled Brihaspati and Nandi to their feet. They joined in, tentative at first, but it was only a matter of time before a reluctant Brihaspati was dancing with abandon. The group moved together in a circle around the fire, the singing louder and livelier. Shiva suddenly darted out of the ring towards Sati. "Dance with me." A flabbergasted Sati shook her head. "Oh, come on. If you can dance while you're Gurvi and I watch, then why not here?" "That was in pursuit of knowledge," said Sati. "So? Must all dance be solely towards that end?" "I didn't say that." "Fine. Have it your way," said Shiva with a frustrated gesture. "Ayavati, come." A startled Ayavati didn't know how to react. Before she could decide on a course of action, Shiva held her hand and pulled her into the circle. Veerbhadra lured Klitika in as well. The group danced boisterously and sang loudly, making a racket in an otherwise quiet night. Sati got up agitatedly and glared at Shiva's back before running into the rest house. Shiva's anger increased even more as he noticed her absence when he tumbled towards the veranda den. He returned to his dance, his heart in a strange mixture of pain and joy. He tumbled once again towards the veranda. There was nobody. Who's behind that curtain? Shiva was dragged into the next move by Veerbhadra. It was some time later that he was in a position to look once again at the veranda. He could see Sati, outlined behind the curtain, staring at him, only at him. Wow! Surprised and delighted, Shiva swung back into his dance, moving in his prime form. He had to impress her. Chapter 13 Blessings of the Impure. Kotwa was decked up in all its glory to receive the Neelkanth. Torches had been lit across the fort perimeter as if it was Diwali. Red and blue pennants, embellished with the Suryavanshi sun, had been hung down the fort walls. In a rare breach of protocol, the governor had come outside the city to personally receive the Neelkanth. The following day, a public function had been organized after the Neelkanth had met the Kotwa elite at the local court. 65,000 people, practically the entire population of Kotwa, had converged for the event. Keeping in mind the vast number of attendees, the event had been organized outside the city platform to ensure that every person could be accommodated. A speech delivered by Shiva convinced the Kotwarons that Meluha's days of trouble were soon to end. The remarkable effect Shiva seemed to have on the people was a revelation to him. Though he was careful with his words, telling them that he would do all he could to support the people of Meluha, the public made their own interpretations. "The cursed Chandravanshis will finally be destroyed," said one man. "We don't have to worry about anything now. The Neelkanth will take care of everything," said a woman. Seated with Brahaspati and Sati on the speaker's platform, Parvateshwar was deeply unhappy with the public's reaction. Turning to the chief scientist, he said, "Our entire society is based on the rule of law, and we are not meant to blindly follow anyone. We are expected to solve our problems ourselves and not hope for miracles from a solitary man. What has this man done to deserve such blind faith?" Parvateshwar said Brahaspati politely, for he greatly respected him. "I think Shiva is a good man. I think he cares enough to want to do something. And aren't good intentions the first step towards any good deed?" Parvateshwar didn't completely agree. Never a believer in the legend of the Neelkanth, the general thought that every man or woman had to aim his station in life with training and preparation, and not just receive it on a silver platter because of a blue throat. Yes, that may be true. But intentions aren't enough. They have to be backed by ability as well. Here we are, putting an untrained man on a pedestal and acting as though he is our savior. For all we know, he might lead us to complete disaster. We are acting on faith, not reason or laws or even exponents. Sometimes one needs a little bit of faith when faced with a difficult situation. Reason doesn't always work. We may also need a miracle. You're talking about miracles? A scientist. You can have scientific miracles too. Parvateshwar smiled. Parvateshwar was distracted by the sight of Shiva stepping off the platform. As he came down, there was a surge of people wanting to touch his hand. The soldiers, led by Nandi and Veerbhadra, were holding them back. There was a blind man amongst them who looked like he might get injured in the melee. "Nandi, let that man through," said Shiva. Nandi and Veerbhadra lowered the rope to let him in. Another man shouted, "I am his son. He needs me to guide him. Let him in as well," said Shiva. The son rushed in and held his father's hand. The blind man, who seemed lost without his son's hand, smiled warmly as he recognized the familiar touch. He was led close to Shiva and the son said, "Father, the Neelkanth is right in front of you. Can you sense his presence?" Copious tears flowed from the blind man's eyes. Without thinking, he bent down to try and touch Shiva's feet. His son cried out in shock as he pulled the man back sharply. "Father," scolded the son. Shiva was stunned by the harshness in the son's tone, which was in sharp contrast with the loving manner in which he had spoken so far. "That happened. I am sorry, my lord," apologized the son. "He didn't mean to. He just forgot himself in your presence." "I am sorry, my lord," said the blind man, his tears flowing stronger. "What about?" asked Shiva. "He is a Vaikama, my lord," said his son, "ever since disease blinded him 20 years ago. He should not have tried to touch you." Sati, who now standing near Shiva, had heard the entire conversation. She felt sympathy for the blind man. She knew the torment of having even your touch considered impure. But what he had tried to do was illegal. "I am sorry, my lord," continued the blind man. "But please don't let your anger with me stop you from protecting our country. It is the greatest land that Paramatma created. Save it from the evil Chandra /Ranshis_ save us, my lord." The blind man continued to cry while folding his hands in a penitent namaste. Shiva was shaken by the dignity of the blind man. He still loves a country that treats him so, and why? Evo, Worsby doesn't use appear to think he's being treated unfair. Tears welled up in Shiva's eyes as he realized that he was lch3 king at a man whom fate had been very unkind to. "I will stop this nonsense. Shiva stepped forward and bent down. The flabbergasted son trembled in disbelief as he saw the Neelkanth touch the feet of his Vaikama father. The blind man was at sea for a moment. When he did understand what the Neelkanth had done, his hand shot up to cover his mouth in shock. Shiva rose and stood in front of the blind man. "Bless me, sir, so that I find the strength to fight for a man as patriotic as Pew." The blind man stood dumbstruck, his tears dried up in his bewilderment. He was about to collapse when Shiva took a quick step forward to hold him, lest he fall to the ground. The blind man found the strength to say, 6J0 Ibat. "Mvi'll be victorious." The son caught hold of his father's limp body as Shiva released him. The entire crowd was stunned into silence by what the Neelkanth had done. Forget the gravity of touching a Vaikama, the Neelkanth had just asked to be blessed by one. Shulpa tummed to see Parvati's enraged face. Shiva had broken the law. Broken it brazenly and in public. Next to him stood Sati. Her face, her eyes, her entire demeanor expressionless. What the hell is she thinking? Brahaspati and Sati entered Shiva's chambers as soon as he was alone. Shiva's smile at seeing Evo of his favorite people in the world disappeared on hearing Sati's voice. "You must get a Shuddhikaran done." He looked at her and answered simply, "No, no." "What do you mean no?" "I mean no." Nahin_Nako said Shiva, adding the words for no in the Kashmiri and the Kotwa dialect, for good measure. Shiva said Brahaspati, keeping his composure. "This is no laughing matter. I agree with Sati. The governor too was worried about your safety and has arranged for a pandit. He waits outside as we speak. Get the ceremony done now." "But I just said I don't want to." Shiva said Sati, reverting to her usual tone. "I respect Pew immensely. Your valor. Your intelligence. Your talent, but you are not above the law. You have touched a Vaikama_, you have to get a Shuddhikaran_, that is the law." "Well, if the law says that my touching that poor blind man is illegal, then the law is wrong." Sati was stunned into silence by Shiva's attitude. "Shiva, listen to me," argued Brahaspati _. "Doing a Shuddhikaran Kanaya harmful to you. You are meant for bigger things. You are important to the future of India. Don't put your own person at risk out of obstinacy." "Is not obstinacy, you tell me. Honestly, how can it harm me if I happen to touch a wronged man, who, I might add, still loves his country despite the way he has been ostracized and ill-treated? He may be a GCH3D man, Shiva, but the sins of his previous birth will contaminate your fate," said Brahaspati_. "Then let them. If the weight on that man's shoulders lessens, I will feel blessed." "What are you saying, Shulpa?" asked Sati. "Why should you carry the punishment of someone else's sins? Firstly, I don't believe the nonsense that he was punished for the sins of his previous birth. He was just stricken by an illness, plain and simple. Secondly, if I choose to carry the weight of someone else's so-called sins, why should it matter to anyone?" "It matters because we care about you," cried Brahaspati. "Come on, Sati," said Shiva. "Don't tell me you believe in this rubbish." "It is not rubbish. Look, don't you want me to fight for you? Stop this unfamous that your society has subjected you to. Is that what this is about?" "Me?" asked Sati, outraged. "No," retorted Shiva immediately, then added. "Actually yes, this is also about you. It is about the Vaikama and the unfairness that they have to face. I want to save them from leading the life of an outcast. One don't need your protection. One cannot be saved," shouted Sati, before storming out of the room. Shiva glared at her retreating form with irritation. "What the hell is it with this woman?" "She's right," Shiva advised Brahaspati_. "Don't go there. You agree with her on this Vaikama business? Answer from your heart, Brahaspati_. Don't you think it is unfair?" "I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about Sati." Shiva continued to glare at Brahaspati defiantly. Everything in his mind, body and soul told him that he should pursue Sati. That his life would be meaningless without her. That his soul's existence would be incomplete without her. Don't go there, my friend, reiterated Brahaspati. The caravan left the river city of Kotwa on a royal barge led and followed by 2 large boats of equal size and grandeur as the royal vessel. Typical of the Meluhan security system, the additional boats were to confuse any attacker as to which boat the royal family may on. The entire royal party was in the second boat. Each of the 3 large boats was manned by a brigade of soldiers. Additionally, 5 small and quick cutter boats kept pace on both sides of the royal convoy, protecting the sides in case of an ambush. The rivers are the best way to travel when the monsoon is not active, my lord, said Autvati. Though we have good roads connecting all major cities, they cannot match the rivers in terms of speed and safety. Shiva smiled at Ayurvati politely. He was not in the frame of mind for much conversation. Sati had not spoken to Shiva since that fateful day at Kotwa when he had refused to undergo a Shuddhikaran. The royal barge stopped at many cities along the river. The routine seemed much the same. Extreme exuberance would manifest itself in each city on the arrival of the Nilkanth. It was a kind of reaction that was quite unnatural in Meluha. But then, a Nilkanth didn't grace the land every day. Why? Asked Shiva of Brahaspati, after many days of keeping quiet about the disquiet in his troubled heart. Why, what? You know what I am talking about, Brahaspati, said Shiva, narrowing his eyes in irritation. She genuinely believes that she deserves to be a Vaikama, answered Brahaspati with a sad smile. Why? Perhaps because of the manner in which she became a Vaikama. How did it happen? It happened during her earlier marriage. What? Sati was married? Yes. That was around 90 years ago. It was a political marriage with one of the noble families of the empire. Her husband's name was. She got pregnant and went to Mecca to deliver the child. It was the monsoon season. Unfortunately, the child was